The views expressed in the following show are of the host, the guest, and the callers. The content of the following show, its accuracy, authenticity, and the ramifications of the use or application of said content is the responsibility of those speaking and listening, not the broadcast medium.
Feet to Fire. I'm your host, James Athianchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. I've put together this video, which I will be broadcasting in audio as well on Feet to the Fire Radio, because the information is very important. Dr. Richard M. Miller let me know while we were recording a show before, a little tidbit came out, and since then he found out a lot more information. Found out why his computer systems were hacked. He said that they physically came into his house, took out his drives, and erased certain files and put them back in. And when he found out what he lost, he narrowed down why. And it was because he had the documents, the patents, proof, and the physics expertise to put it all together to do a exposure of a relatively new, it's been years in the making, been used before probably in the last 10, 20 years, but perfected now, a fusion bomb, which consists of using water, basically water lasers, and what he's calling a buckyball of diamond hard C40, C60, a carbon atom with 60 atoms arranged like the Buckminster Fuller's buckyball, which is used to contain the deuterium or tritium water atoms, which are excited by a laser, causing a internal explosion, which is held together by this super strong carbon material, causing a implosion and a fusion, which of course then releases huge amounts of energy, which breaks through the ball. And this is done on a scale where you would have many, millions of these together, which would cause a chain reaction and a huge explosion. No radiation, no apparent delivery, no planes dropping the bombs, and which is obviously huge. Another problem with it is, problem for us, is that these particular preloaded with deuterium or tritium could be ingested into a human, stay there, embed itself in, and literally could be activated to potentially have the person disappear. They're going to dissolve. Examples of which may have been used in 9/11, which you saw on video, where you had beams disintegrating into thin air. Dr. Trudy Wood has come up with directed energy weapon of some type caused this. This could very well be the weapon she's referring to. The beam is the activator, and the preloaded material could be easily put in. Well, we go into that in the video. I just want to give you an outline. This is important. Now, of course, in the Richard Miller style, we do go off on tangents. I try to keep it together. He does too, but I'm the same way. I like to talk about a bunch of different things. So we get in some esoteric, spiritual, magic type stuff. So I mean, that's nice flavor along the way, because the topic is not exactly a wonderful thing to be talking about. But it has to be known so that people be aware of it, and then take their own individual actions of how to object to their money and their government doing this. So Richard Miller, another thing I want to say is that Richard Miller is not a rich man, rich in information, but he's living on a somewhat fixed income, and he needs to sell his books, really, to help supplement that income. His knowledge is what he has to offer the world. That's what he can produce at this point. So I really, if you do like what you're hearing on these interviews, I recommend going to his website, Oak-Publishing, to purchase any or all of his works. Not only is it excellent information, but it does help him keep on keeping on, as it is. He has been severely hacked and book sales prevented, and this has all been documented by his web guys, and they've been working to get around these hacks. I know since I've been talking between him and Janet Phelan, my hacking on my servers have went from just your random everyday people fishing for a hole to specific attacks using my name, emails, specifically to feet to the fire to try and get in the server. And a lot coming from America, where before it used to be from China and whatnot. It still is, but that's those random ones. These are starting to get targeted. So apparently something is to this, in that this never happened to this specific extent before. For those who don't know who Dr. Richard Allen Miller is, just to Google will give you a whole eyeful. Many interviews over the years, videos we've done on Feet to the Fire. We've done 3 videos, and we have several more audio interviews going back over the years. He's one of these guys that wants to get into everything to understand how it works. He was involved in the Navy SEALs in the early days, writing protocols and various actions. He was teaching people how to use their gut, to which road to go to, and so forth. He'll talk about using his gut as a way to get information and intuition. A lot of writings and studying in botanicals, a lot in the pharmaceutical and metaphysical use thereof, as well as health issues. I myself take some cordyceps, which he has kind of designed a mix for, which helps oxygenate the blood, among other things. He's written many books, and best to look up that aspects. His main website, I guess you can start at and then branch out between that and Google, is richardallenmiller.com. No spaces, no capitals. Well, I guess capitals don't matter anymore. And then you can go from there out into what he's doing. Also, you can use the Google and whatnot. So let's get into our interview. All right, we are live with Richard Miller recording this. We're going to be focusing on what I'm calling the buckyball fusion bomb, which is a little more technical. Richard will go into it. And I got Richard here. Welcome, Richard, to do this very important information.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now, I want to say something off the front. I said, usually when you talk to people, they have an expert in a certain area. So if you were to look at, say, a three-dimensional graph, say a flat piece of paper would say of somebody who has no knowledge, all right? You'll find people who have various dents in the paper showing them what they variously know. And then you have people who specialize in something, and you'll see these great big gravity wells full of information as you go along. But when I look at what you know, is you not only know deep gravity wells on various subjects, but you know a lot of deep subjects. So instead of knowing a lot about one topic, you know a lot about a lot of things. So when I look at your picture, I see like the Grand Canyon of stuff. So what we're going to be doing...
No. In history, there have been people called polymath. Okay, like, Sistine Chapel guy. They're polymath. They're skilled in a number of areas where I've crammed a bunch of incarnations into one life here. Mm-hmm. And, the military, then being a farmer, and then teaching metaphysics and spiritual path working. And now I'm back into the physics again. So here we are.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do in these future recordings is to kind of focus on certain aspects and develop them, and then do another recording with other things, because I like going all over the place. I have let's say a little knowledge in a lot, and so I like to hear all this stuff. But I'm going to try in these upcoming interviews to pick particular topics and focus in on them and get a lot of information out on that topic. And today,
by the way, James, if you see me rocking and humming, that's because I am what they call a functioning idiot savant. I'm just on the edge.
Okay. All right.
Just kidding.
Yeah. But we're going to talk about is this buckyball bomb, the Fullerenes. We'd like to start from square one and I want to actually get into how it works in physics terms. I mean, deep, so that anybody of any level could watch this and learn, plus as well as putting it in a general context. But as we talked about in the last interview, we got into the cavitation bomb, we got into the whole aspects of it. But let's go back to square one and start out by talking about what is this buckyball bomb consist of and how does it work?
Okay, the original studies at MIT with Mark Leclerc started with the pictures of dolphin blowing bubbles and creating rings that they played with them on. That was called sonoluminescence. And they wanted to know what the physics was because it appeared to be a form of cold fusion. And what's happened is that when MIT started doing these studies, you can actually see the fluidic dynamics involved of Euler's equation and the way you have toruses turning inside out on himself with topological surfaces. Let me give you a metaphor. When a drop of water falls into a big pool, it creates a set of waves going outward. It also caused waves to go inward, and they slap and form a ball of air. And that water has been so structured that it forms what we call exclusion zone water, which is H3O2. It is like hydrogen peroxide with an extra hydrogen molecule that causes the bonding to form a very interesting electro van der Waals short, what they call small interaction frequencies. It's a quantum mechanical thing that at some point won't be valid. Van der Waals force, that's what it's called, van der Waals. Now, I see these things in everything. And when a submarine goes through the water, the screw of the propeller through the water causes a series of bubbles to follow behind it called cavitation bubbles, or they're water. There's a very thin structure of water surrounding a bunch of air, oxygen, whatever, and that is cavitating into itself. The cavitation is different than black hole, white hole of Stephen Hawking's. A cavitation process is more like Roger Penrose and his work on torus twistor space. And if you put dyes, and they have in their studies, in these things so you can see what the fluid is actually doing as an air molecule, you will see that it is flowing into itself like a big torus or a storm. And I'll give you a visual that you can use. I'll upload that in a minute when I can not have to focus on not losing my place. That torus twister is where the energy comes from in what we call cold fusion. And the actual topological surface of where the thing is turning inside out is called exclusion zone boundary. Exclusion zone boundaries are 6 orders of magnitude smaller than what we call in quantum mechanics the forbidden zones of Dr. Raymond Bend and Bend theory. The idea is that that's where gallium and arsenic would slide together and they create a relationship difference between one metal and the other, and that's our current form of storage devices in terms of what we call in, out, and or not. And so IO, or the IO forms of mathematics, in and out. The water one is so efficient. This is where the term memory comes in. The idea that you can store memory in water. You can. You absolutely can. In fact, there's now interesting studies called intentionality, the intention experiment, where you try to impress your thoughts in water and then try to prove it using Raman spectrophotometry, where the light refraction changes. That is how they're doing that. That all started with the Rustum Roy at Penn State, working as emeritus in water structures and the concepts of homeopathy. Now, where water becomes very interesting is in its relationship to something else. And water has many different forms. It has a para and ortho structure to it. That means levorotary. Or one's going in one direction and the other is the other, and that's my hand. That's levorotary. But this concept, mathematically, even has more impression. And so water, when it has 4 parts levo to 1 part ortho, now that's normal. Ortho and para. There's usually about 4-to-1 ratio. That sets up a relationship of the way one molecule structures with another. And water is very small. In fact, it's the smallest molecule we know of that has a dipole moment. There are other molecules like helium, which is He2, that is a smaller molecule, but it doesn't have any kind of interesting van der Waals forces because of the dipole moment. 23 degrees. All of these things are very interesting. And so what Mark Leclerc at MIT is going to suggest is that this is where God resides, in water. Now, so water becomes very important in the understanding of what cavitation processes mean. There is a new term out called supercavitation. And supercavitation is quite different than cavitation and has to do with Euler's equation divided by 2. Remember that equation. This is where we're going to get into fusion bombs and how they work, because this aspect of it is what has been known. The neutron bomb was talked about and developed in the 50s. Neutron meaning that it was a clean bomb. It would leave everything biological dead, and it wasn't a big explosion. What we're seeing with these new fusion bombs using supercavitation is a plasma, where concrete will be left as a slag, where you can watch steel girders dissolve because the actual temperatures of these things are 60 times hotter than the surface of the sun. It's a plasma with a sheath and all the other things that go with it. And so this is what is where the research is starting to go. Now, the first application where I became aware of fullerenes was in exclusion zone water, where they were trying to put this easy water inside a fullerene. A fullerene is carbon. Carbon atoms join to each other in all kinds of strange structures. The C60, if you have 60 carbon atoms, you will form a buckyball, and it has 60 surfaces related inside that will be able to reflect light into the center of it, like a Dyson sphere with a sun inside. That's a good way to look at it. Metaphor of a large Dyson sphere that it talks around surrounding the sun for a closed system. Now, what makes the buckyball C60 one so interesting is that structure contains the vector equilibrium matrix. And because it has that matrix form in it, it makes it 100 times stronger than diamond. Now that's that. So if you have an explosion, and by the way, C60, 60 carbon atoms is approximately 1.2 nanometers, if you want to make a note on that. It's just approximately, that's the width of it. And so when you do this structure, and then you put something like deuterium or tritium, another form of water, heavy water, which it has extra neutrons, there you have a different kind of a neutron bomb. And what they're doing is they're activating it with a laser beam. And the way that's done today is with Air Force systems of tunneling. That was event horizon, precursor waves. This all came out of band theory and then led to the concept of tunneling, where what you do using gravity or something like gravity. Isn't that interesting? There's a phone truck out in front of me, maybe trying to mess with my pole. Just keep recording, cowboy.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah, right. I believe you. I've had so much.
It's important that because this technology has incredible possibilities, like nuclear energy. It will cure cancer if you use it appropriately. Won't create it, it'll cure it. Same thing with this technology. It has several faces to it. The original one, the one I first became aware of, was that the Russians were using shungite, which is a C60 carbon nanotube. We'll talk about that in a minute. Basically, would surround isotopes and ionizing radiation particles and wipe them out of your body. And it's like a super antioxidant. And what they were doing was, and repeatable, reproducible studies, they would give lethal doses of radiation to rats, feed them Fullerene water with exclusion zone water in it, and 95% will survive. Imagine what that's going to do on all the other chemicals in our body as a future nanite direction of technology and where we're going.
Now, how would it know what to surround that it'd be bad and not take out good stuff?
It's the bond angles, the way the molecule is structured and forming the nanotube of a series of fullerenes. Fullerene is a buckyball.
Right. Got that. No, I want to ask him because...
And they have, by the way, there's other buckyballs. There's a C70 and there's a C120. There's a whole raft of them where they form bigger balls and do other things.
So the structure of the unit would decide what it absorbs?
Yes.
Okay.
And what it goes after because of the electrostatic and van der Waals forces that are exhibited off of high ionizing radiation, gamma particles, whatever, and the idea of beta and alpha particles and the way they would structure in isotopes or isomers.
And also could one say
we
that...
have deuterium and tritium.
Well, could we also say that the natural, we'll call them good items, don't exhibit traits that would allow them to be absorbed by these? In other words, like, electric shocks to the body kills...
They're selective to properties of high ionizing radiation and heavy metals.
Okay, so that was something we wouldn't want to have in our body.
That's what we know of as of this moment. What we do know, that's how I first got into fullerenes, the idea that you could have a lethal dose of radiation, be fed this water, and have a 95% chance of survival. 5% not survival isn't very good either, too, by the way, just for the record. But, I mean, just to keep things in even, I don't think I want to something that's a sure bet like my gut rather than my brain.
Right.
You know, my gut is outside space and time, and when it says something's wrong, I listen.
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, I don't know what to think. Okay, so that's where I started with fullerenes, and I thought, we have a possibility. That's why when I wrote in Carrie Cassidy's article, following up on the Fukushima report that I did for The Nation, we're in deep shit here, and we need to wake up and turn off the switch. That is what has to happen there, or we're facing an extinction event, fullerenes or not. Now, one of the other directions of fullerenes, which is in the second article I gave you, is making, an elevator into space. So it only costs you $200 to get up into orbit rather than $20,000. Now, I'm watching.
Is that because it's so strong? You can create a structure.
It's 100 times stronger, and when you cord them, and in the article, I have some actual pictures where nanotubes surround other nanotubes, and the next thing you do is you have something that is paranormal in strength.
Because I remember reading a book a while back. I forgot what the name of it was, where they had a elevator into space. And now that you mention it, I think they did mention something about those tubes
Yeah, well, there's a Japanese company that has actually gone public with pictures and studies showing where they're going to go and a timetable on that. And you can find that, is an interesting side thing there. I love all your electronics and your anonymous mask. It all fits.
Yeah, well, it's funny. All this stuff, I'm looking at it, like someday it's going to all be dark. And I'm looking at it and go, yeah, that's fun. That was fun while I had it. But
yeah, I noticed how the anonymous movement got infiltrated, just like.
Oh yeah, I knew it would happen. I mean, by definition, the anonymous movement would be perfect to be infiltrated because they're all anonymous.
Yeah, there you go. That's how it all works. Just like Bundy Ranch, you have to when you form an organized society like that, a protest, you have to be very careful because it's like Mahatma Gandhi. I want to march to the sea for my soul, and this is the distinction of what this new video, I just love it. It's called Statanism. I'll send you that link and everything. And the guy nails it. And I have a Republican conservative school teacher girlfriend. I love her. And she watched it and she was moved by the whole idea of we're giving up sovereignty and having to do bidding.
Quite simply, a statist is somebody who believes in having a state. Basically, anybody who wants government. Government is the exercise of authority over a people or place, and that is basically the right to rule. It's not just the ability to control other people, because most people have that in one way or another. It's the right. It's the idea that certain people, it's legitimate for them to forcibly control others. Belief in government is a purely faith-based, indoctrinated belief. It doesn't actually make any sense in practical terms or in evidence or in logic. For years, I thought it was a really good analogy to compare government to religion, and only a few years ago did I realize it's not an analogy. It is a religion in every way. It has a superhuman deity, government, that has rights that mortals don't. It isn't restricted by the rules that apply to mortals. It issues commands, and if you disobey, you're a sinner, and you deserve to be punished. The faithful, the true believers, they have great faith in these bizarre rituals, elections and legislation and appointments, and they dress up and then they say, ta-da, now I represent government. I know I just look like a person, but I don't just have the rights of a person because I represent the magical deity called government. And so I'm allowed to demand your money and boss you around and hurt you if you disobey me. I'm acting on behalf of government, and it has commandments called laws. And these laws aren't just the threats of humans. They are decrees from something superhuman.
And I remember my Quaker teachings when I said to everybody, I would rather be a conscientious objector. I don't believe in war. I don't believe in Syrian war. I don't believe any of it. And I would say, like this this one guy I posted the other day, the United States has no right to judge anybody. We're the biggest bully in the world. How dare us? We're the ones that killed so many hundreds of thousands of people in the name of war and doing good for people. And none of it has happened.
Yeah, we have
no right doing this thing.
We have a Peace Prize president who bombs to help people. Nobel Peace Prize.
It doesn't, and it's a war machine economy, and I don't want to have anything to do with it. I would rather be a farmer. I would rather have my own sovereignty, or at least partial sovereignty. I'm going to give you a couple of new websites that I think you'll like. How about this one? We talked about community-supported agriculture. We just tangented just like that, didn't we? We're no longer on.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware of that. I'm going to bring it back in a second, but
I know. But this is interesting. You may want to do this as a second thing. There are some new websites that I'm impressed with. There's one, community-supported agriculture, where the community finds some of the local gardeners at the farmers market, and they support his farming effort on a small basis for so many pounds of groceries during the year. And there is a new thing called permacredits.com out of North Carolina that is doing that with 8 permaculture growing groups in the South. And then there's a new group that I just hooked up with up in Williams, Oregon, down working with Asheville, North Carolina, and these big permaculture groups called ebarterbank.net. Now, imagine that all hooking up with Ithaca dollars. And what you have now is a barter system. The petrodollar is finished. It's not, and good riddance. It's going to be really hard on all of us, but goodbye to the Fed, because money is a theatrical prop. What's real is labor, and all the rest of this, and inflation and everything, means nothing. It's just a little dance. And so what's going to happen is in the next 2 weeks, Saudi Arabia is going to buy a bunch of oil with non-petrodollars. That's how it starts. And then within 3 months, everything from Asia will triple in price. That's how it's going to work. And Putin and our dropping gas prices right now to punish Putin, that's just a little piss. And what they're doing now is try to scare us with Ebola, false flags for fear and distraction while they're bombing Syria, which I don't believe in. I didn't vote for that. And the Congress, what did they put it? Reluctantly agreed. What's that mean? That's the headline I got in Grants Pass, Oregon, was, reluctantly agreed. I saw it as the inside cover, headline, national news. It's wrong. Everybody knows it's wrong. And Nuremberg is what all of us have to face in heaven or something related. I'm just saying, that we need to be more mindful of what we really believe in. And this movie, Satanism, he's not Satanism, it's Satanism.
That's clever. But it's very accurate too.
And it's very accurate also. Yes, I concur. And the other one I really like, you're going to love this video. Yeah. Humans need not apply. It's on robotics and where we're going, like the horse did with the horseless carriage. Good luck with that, man. Because now with robotics and information transfer, you see we're going right back to that NASA document and the quickening where we're talking about nanotechnology, information transfer, and we haven't even started on genome modification or expression. That is the scary place. I'm guessing geo-engineering, you want to get this one good. I'm going to guess that if it isn't there now, it will be, that geo-engineering will be a bio API Fullerene that's site selective, and then you have a weapon like the good Captain Kirk inhabiting the bad Captain Kirk's body, and has this weapon where anybody he pulls up on his screen, he can make them disappear. That's a way you could get rid of an aircraft. Using their new black boxes that Boeing.
All right, now hold on. Let me go back to the word disappear. You're referring to just die or?
Supposing the structure of that aircraft had Fullerene carbon test in it.
Right.
And then you ported a laser beam into the center of it. And we'll talk about how that all works.
I see. Okay.
Oh, yeah. The whole thing would, like that 617-foot steel beam that fell after Building 7 fell.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to realize that jet fuel does not burn hot enough to slag concrete. That's a fact. And nobody, I'm saying it doesn't get that hot. How did it slag? And when that beam came down, as you saw it start to fall, it disintegrated into vapor.
Yeah, that was actually in one of the Twin Towers, though, 1 or 2.
Well, it was Building 7. It was Building 7.
Because that collapsed on itself, though, Building 7. I mean.
Yeah, it vaporized.
Right.
And thermite does not get that hot. And jet fuel does not burn hot enough to slag concrete.
Well, let me ask you this, since we've tangent into this topic. Dr. Judy Wood, are you familiar with any of her work?
I absolutely am.
And so, to me, what you're saying would fit in with her work. And
well, she is as bright as I am, and she said that it's absolutely a demolition. It used a new weapon. I'm guessing it was a prototype of what they are now using everywhere. And it's like a tactical nuke, like on Baghdad Airport, except Baghdad Airport was not a tactical nuke. It was probably a more advanced development of this Fullerene bomb.
All right, but what I'm trying to say is that her thing was that some kind of directed energy weapon did it.
Well,
but wait. But what you're saying with the Fullerene bomb is that is a directed energy weapon. Only it's not a gun.
Yes, it is. Except that it's not a ray gun.
Right. But the idea is
the structure that was made, or what's in that structure. They can activate it using a simple laser beam that they now teleport inside a 1.2 nanometer buckyball. And if you have in the center of that deuterium or tritium, that structure is the only thing known in science today that could withstand and contain that explosion. And that's the deal. It's 100 times stronger than diamond. That structure is. And that's the C60 one. The C70, the C120 have other uses.
All right. Well, then let me just restate this now. So you can take this D60 unit with the deuterium inside. You can then mix it into concrete. You can put it anywhere you want. So when you want,
about in the air you breathe, so that it's in everybody.
Okay. All right. Right. So what my point is that so now it's in everything. They can simply tune in a laser on any individual or any structure or whatever, and I don't want to say ignite, but start this operation, which will result in the person literally
spontaneous combustion.
So I mean, the idea is that if you put this in everything, it's just a question of knowing it and having the right laser to do it. So wouldn't that allow also the opposition to do the same thing, so that we'll start vaporizing each other?
I don't think everybody's got this yet. It's like the nuclear bomb. Nazis had nuclear energy also, but they didn't deploy it as quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, there is Antarctica. Maybe there's still something else going on.
You know, Antarctica, to go off yet at another tangent, Antarctica, they do have this secrecy about it where they are looking underneath things and not talking about it. It's all kind of secret down there.
Okay, that's because in the mantle is a honeycomb, and at Antarctica there's one cavern that's over a mile high with weather and storms and the wind and the rain and snow, and it's all lit up. How did that work? That's why I got to go. It was bioluminescence, special algae. But look, that I just lets me know that nothing we know is true. Nothing. What's going on? You look like you had a.
I know you're getting started. I'm trying to open this.
Saturday Night Live. Knock knock.
I'm trying to open.
Sorry. Oh, how about Green River? How about I open? It's legal in my state. And I have a pet over there on the wall, and I get it because I'm in pain.
Well, anyway, going back, the whole point, the revelation on this is that you have this stuff. Now, for example, all right, if I want to attack a certain area, how do I go about doing it? Do I just kind of pepper the area with this ball and then ignite it? I mean, how is it used in a tactical deployment other than pre-constructing it?
I don't know, unless it's in the construction material as part of how they're going to build it. You know, we're going to use this carbon nanofiber because it's so strong.
I see. So this is more current and future buildings.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I mean, so like
and other kind. They don't need drones anymore. What they can do is have the drone port the laser beam inside.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to.
Doesn't even have to be done from space.
The towers and whatnot. how could they retro-used it, for example? How could they retrofitted the towers to enact it with this?
I'm sure that there's. It would only take a couple of weeks to.
They do have a window where it was closed, and they did have floors closed, and did stuff. So I mean, there was an act. I'm just asking how that could be done. They could just kind of place them in there.
That's how it was probably done. Because they probably didn't have the physical technology at the time they built the buildings themselves. Otherwise, it would have been built into the building itself as a self-destruction for cleanup later. Did you notice how little debris there was?
Right.
That's well, it's vaporized. And there's only one thing that can do that, and that's a plasma.
So, because the plasma temperature is so hot that anything around it would lose its structure.
That's correct.
Okay. It's like if you talk.
It would vaporize.
Yeah.
If the plasma is what, look, when I built the first plasma jet in 1960. Hold on. Where was I? 65. 1965. I spent the summer in the basement of the physics department, between my junior and senior year, and I learned how to use a Bridgeport mill, and I built the first plasma jet. It was my undergraduate thesis, and it's why I have a BS in physics rather than philosophy. Now, with that plasma jet had a flame when I did it, was about 18 inches. It had such a sheath around it that when I applied magnetic fields, I could actually turn it inside out on itself like a knot, and it wouldn't mix. I've got pictures of when I did that. And what I did is I had a window where I could feed a long tungsten rod, and when I put it into the tip of the flame of the tungsten rod, this was at Washington State University, 1965. Bender was there. There was Donaldson, Dr. Band, Raymond Band, James Donaldson. They were all present when I turned it on. The whole campus went down in lights. When I turned it down, it was like I needed huge wattage to create this arc across and create a plasma jet, not a plasma torch. I did not say it was a torch. I am saying it was a plasma jet. And when I built it, later, Giannini out of California used it, my design, to create space tile. Because what I was able to do in as part of my thesis was I put a tungsten rod in front of it, and it vaporized it to 1 angstrom. Tungsten, not steel. And I did that in 65. And so I know this weapon can exist on a nanometer level now, apparently. Like my holographic concept, when I conceived it, it was on DNA being a three-dimensional hologram of force space, who you were, who you are, and who you will be. However, now my holographic concept includes structured water, and because that's 6 orders of magnitude more, it's possibly the collective unconscious. It's where you and I are one, and I am the walrus.
Speaking of that, I want to go on record here that since the time we talked on the phone, all right, that night and the night after, I had dreams where you were there talking to me, and you
don't tell.
I don't remember. See, I don't.
There is racial collective memories. We talk about a priori and a posteriori. We talk about the way you teach your children. That's Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Teach them well. That's your mini-me's, if you want to look at metaphor of taking your next reincarnation and setting her, not you, out into the world. You talking to your daughter like I did to my daughter. I raised my daughter as if, that's a very good, as if she were not real, but a projection of the younger feminine part of myself into the physical world. And I was able to dialogue with her, and she was able to do things I couldn't do that added to the length, girth, and width of what humanity is. And that's the collective unconscious, which is only 4 levels up in the hologram. There are 8 levels if you follow Timothy Leary.
Actually, it sounds like that'd be a nice interview, is to have an interview with your daughter, is what it was like to live with Richard Allen Miller as a father.
My daughter, you know what my daughter does today? She's 47, and she works for the governor, directly for the governor, and her title is controller for the state of Oregon. And she has a $3.2 billion budget. She's the one that nixed Oregon, coverage, that bullshit with Obamacare. She told the governor not to do it. We're one of those that are not going there.
Oh, good.
This state.
Good.
But she also told me that Johnson & Johnson wax budget is $3.2 billion a quarter. That means that Johnson & Johnson is 4 times larger than the state of Oregon. And when you realize that there are Bayer and some of the other major pharmaceutical houses, and we're not even talking about other industries here, just exactly what are we talking about here in terms of transnational corporations and the fact that they are monitoring and altering the weather for a design that has nothing to do with you and me. Basically, you and me are seen as robots in the matrix, where so many BTUs in, there's so many BTUs out as a productive thing. And what's going to happen is, in America, is we're going to have to go back to our old skills again and have a little pride in what we did for ourselves. Sovereignty is hard to do, and so you barter. And that's where it's probably going to go with ebarterbank.net and that kind of thing. I would like to see a time where it became like Ithaca Dollars. Ithaca Dollars works. That's a cool example up in Ithaca, New York, and, the university there. I believe our future is going to be okay. I don't know how it's going to be okay other than to suggest that all of us need to focus on what we do best and make that our joy. And that's what you have to offer to the community. That's going to be how it works, a different way of being.
Well, I think if one actually focused on their talents, joy, as you put it, it would make sense that if we were able to do that, we could joyfully work for the greater good of all. It wouldn't be a drudgery at all. It would be good on all levels.
What I would add to that is that when you said the greater good, I was going to do something out of Fuzz, the Hot Fuzz, the movie, when you said for the greater good, and then I would the greater good in the Grant State. I love that movie. That's a cult movie called Hot Fuzz, where you said the greater good.
I've not seen that movie. I'll have to check that out.
Hot Fuzz. It is excellent.
Now back to the.
I went and saw this new movie with Nicolas Cage and the Rapture. Have you heard about that?
Well, I'm familiar with the theology and all the Left Behind books. I am not too fond of the theology. I think it's exclusionary and erroneous.
What happens is he's in this aircraft, and the Rapture ripples through, and a whole bunch of people disappear, including the co-pilot, and the plane, and the whole of the universe. Where if a whole bunch of people just disappeared all at once, using a Fullerene bomb, boom, there's your Rapture, man, and everybody will buy into it. I waited for the Rapture. Never came and got me. I was left behind. That's the name of the movie, Left Behind. Right. And so what I'm going to do is try to mind my own ship and try to do what I do right. And if I can do that, other people will see me doing that, witnessing it, and then do their own. And if it's different than mine, that's God's will. I am not here to judge.
Mm-hmm.
That's what our United States has no business judging anybody. Well, Vietnam, I was there. Get a grip. It was wrong. It was all about the military complex and saber rattling and all the rest of it. And now Korea, is trying to do their. It's nuts. It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's petrodollar, China, Iran, and Russia.
Well, now they got
That's
the brick.
what's gonna happen.
They're working on with that brick system there, where they're going to have their own currency, or at least they're.
Well, they
working,
do.
Yeah.
They have their own currency, and that's what's going to happen. Saudi Arabia is going to buy, and when they do, that will be the end of it.
Oh, I see. So Saudi Arabia is going to sell oil to the BRICS using brick dollars, we'll call it.
That is correct. That's the way I see it. I don't think it'll be ISIS. The ISIS was the other way they were going to do that, and I don't think it's going to go that way. The false flag of ISIS. I think ISIS isn't real. It's unfortunate that we don't have any valid news reporting anymore. That we're given the real. The guy that goes in under fire and tries to get the real story.
Yeah.
That guy. Where is he now? I don't see anybody on NBC or ABC doing anything like they used to do when Walter Cronkite. That's the way it was.
Well, I'm sure there was some type of control there, but it was less, I don't know what the word would be, extreme and obviously wrong. I mean, it's gotten so bad now.
That's what we're calling censorship. Yes, it was less censored. The Washington Post, with the breaking of Watergate, and that kind of journalism that isn't so much about dirty laundry, and it's like getting to the truth of it. See, truth isn't in information anyway. It's something that you just simply know from your gut. And it's different a little bit for each of us. That's why you can't make judgment. The movie itself had a Muslim on board that ship that was the one that carried most people through the rapture of not knowing what that meant. And it wasn't about religion. It's about your relationship to yourself and what that means to you, and why we have urges and instincts that we often ignore that are part of why we're here.
Yeah, I would say that the way I look at truth is like a diamond, multifaceted diamond, and we are only privy to certain facets. And so we're both looking at the same diamond, but from different perspectives. So they may appear who's right, who's wrong, but we're all right, and we're all wrong in that we're missing parts of the diamond. So if we would all kind of get together, you could actually see more of the diamond, but instead we're fighting each other.
Well, that's the collective unconscious getting together part of things. That's probably how that works. And there are other cuts on diamonds also. That's the side view of realizing that it's so infinite in the possibilities. It's only limited by your imagination.
Okay, back to Fullerene bombs. So let's say, is it possible to sprinkle the air above a place and then laser the cloud or something like that to try and use it as a bomb?
To my knowledge, that technology does not yet exist, but is in research right now, yes, as we speak. And there will be, at some point, most likely, a delivery system reminiscent of the Avatar programs of transhumanism. Transhumanism, as I'm understanding, is abhorrent and want no part of that for myself. There's some people out there right now on major radio trying to suggest they're already doing it, and that there and uploaded their thing and used it as a walk-in. How's that for a word? As a walk-in. I don't want to go there. What I'm trying to do is understand the physics and technology and where it possibly could go, and that is one direction it could go. And so if it's possible, you can count on it. Anything not specifically forbidden is mandatory.
Yeah, but
that's Merlin. Merlin said that, man.
But I can't.
So if it's possible, you can count on it. And yes, as an aerosol and chemtrails, that's what they call the bio-API. And I will send you my geo-engineering thing with all those references on the bio-API. That's creepy.
All right, so
they actually show movies.
All right, so better stated would be they could spray it in the clouds, we breathe it in, and we become a walking bomb then.
Or the potential of being eliminated in
Yeah.
a rapture.
Well, okay. That's very important to notice. All right, to put in there, the technology is there to make groups of people disappear.
It's so close to there that if it isn't happening, it will within the next 2 years. That's how quickly it's changing.
All right. Well, let me again. I'm trying to look at this as a deliverable weapon. Going back to say a structure that's not full of it. If somebody is full of these little fullerenes, and they walk into a structure, and there is a laser device to ignite them, they could be a walking bomb. Then.
Well, that would be one application. Yeah.
All right, now, would there be enough of a discharge to cause damage around them? Or would, I don't know how big the explosion would one person be?
Usually, you realize that we're talking about 1.2 nanometers. That's 1,000 times smaller than your cell wall.
So
it's like a little comet going through our solar system. I was going to send you something, but I need to focus on what I'm saying, and so I'm going to.
Okay, we'll get that. We get that at the end. I can put it in because what I'm saying is that then a person could be full of these and therefore be a pretty big bomb in themselves.
I would say that if we're not full of these, we will be, because you can use a cotton swab on your inner lip, put it on a slide, and see the polymer at 600 mics, 600 power. You can see it. Now, that's in everything. And most likely dehydrating or micro-dehydrating everything around you. That means it'll have water that you have will get locked up in that polymer. No way to get access to that water.
This polymer is the
That's absolutely
D60? Is it the D60 or is it the D60 in the polymer?
No, that's not a fullerene.
Okay.
What that is a very large bacteria. It's called an extremovite. That's what I was going for. I'd forgotten what I was sending you. It's geo-engineering. I'll send you the geo-engineering paper next. Basically, and I'll do that later. I now remembered what it was I was trying to send you. In geoengineering, they took a bacteria from the stratosphere. It's called an extremovite. It's a bacteria that can live at about 100 below Fahrenheit. There are ones that can live in lava tubes and so on. This bacteria is up in the stratosphere, and they brought it down to Earth and modified it to become a nanobot. This is well known and well documented, and I've got links on that on geoengineering. And Dean Wigington and others are right in the forefront of upgrading, updating on a daily basis, like, Fukushima and some of the other things we're all worried about. But in geoengineering, what that bacteria does, it's a nanobot that creates a polymer. A polymer is a plastic geometry, and you can line that geometry with metals, barium oxide, that's a good one, aluminum oxide, others, and they act as desiccants that form these artificial clouds. They pull the moisture right out of the thing and form these clouds. They start to feather, and once they do, it creates a boundary that they can slide communications across like they used to do with HAARP. It's a way of delivering, because in certain microwave bands, those are solids looking. And so, it's a waveguide. Now, they used them as bombs over Hawaii and Tennessee a month and a half, almost 2 months ago, when those big storms hit. There was that big tropical storm going to Hawaii. NOAA infrared captured it. When the bomb went off, you could see the bomb. It doesn't go boom. What it does is it goes hot. And the hot causes moisture to just collapse in, and you have this cavitation process then that starts where it's a controlled storm. And they set a second one off over Maui about a half an hour later. It's all documented, and you can see it anywhere. And I have the references in the white paper I'll send you of the actual NOAA infrared. It came out of Hawaii, and there it is. Had a simultaneous one in Tennessee. And so the two went off at the same time, boom. And that's a new weapon that controls the weather. And your collateral damage on that is California. And the produce that is no longer going to come out of California. And it's going to come from countries you can't even pronounce.
Why is that?
It's going to. What's that?
Why is it not going to come out of California?
California's in drought.
Drought, okay, because the water has to come from somewhere. You know, you can't just take...
There's no water. I mean, California, I have never seen Shasta Lake like it is. It's empty. What's California going to do? It's turning into a desert. There are individuals that have wells and things like that down there that are selling their water for 9 times its value, and knowing that at some point they can't, and they'll default on, pumpkins. No, not so much pumpkins, but watermelon, cantaloupe, that kind of thing. They're going to die out. And the farming's in a serious problem. The weather here in Grants Pass is not normal. We are going through 50-degree swings right now from night to day. It was 94 yesterday, and gets down below 46 at night. And this is October. We should be in rains, and we have no snowpack. There's nothing. We should be getting snowpack.
Back to the weather type arm. So they seed the clouds. How do they ignite this?
Probably a laser beam.
Okay, so it's not too dissimilar to the other thing. It's
They're probably lacing geo-engineering polymers with fullerenes. That could be a real weird direction. I hadn't even thought about that. Thank you for that connection. That's a good one. Thank you. I'll research that a little more to see if it's viable. My first gut instinct is, why didn't I see that?
Well, you can't see. I mean, you see like a zillion things, a zillion and one. Here's a zillion and one. So now you do.
Well, it's all part of a big picture of why we are worse off in news reporting than during World War II and Nazi Germany. And at some point, the good German says, we didn't know. We didn't understand. There was nothing we could do. Well, I'm 71, which means I don't have to fight anybody. I don't want to fight anybody. I am not recommending that. I am recommending, I don't believe in it. So I don't know, I forget what they call those, conscientious objector. I just don't want to do it on religious grounds. I don't feel I have the right to make judgment or kill someone because someone in authority above me says for me to do that. I won't do that. I won't break my own codes of laws in terms of thou shalt not kill. I won't do it. Now, is that religious or is that spiritual? It's all the same when you understand who you are. And there are different people that can do that and will, not me. And that's what I'm going to try to do, is walk my talk. And I don't want to break the laws. And if I'm ordered to do it, how does that work? That's like a bully. What are they going to do? Hurt me? That's the Statanism movie that I suggested to you, where they, can order you to do it because it's the law for you to do it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a scary place now. And I don't really want to make judgment except on myself. And I'm guessing that if I do this right for myself, and I don't know how to do it yet, the world will do it. I somehow relate myself and the purpose I'm trying to hold as a metaphor. And if we each of us looked at it that way, that's where you become responsible for your own evolution. That's what you're trying to do, is become more wholly, evolved. And
see,
you do it through fellowship with churches, you do it. But
see, what I'm going to give an example here is how I think what's happening now is that, in one hand, if we said, this is just a metaphor, if we said, in order to have world peace, we have to take a torch and we have to hand it off to the next guy, and it has to circle the whole globe, then it'll work. Well, if you had to actually orchestrate that, it's impossible. right? However, when you look at the consciousness behind us all, if we just happen to pay attention to our part, we will be in the right place and time to pass the torch. The next guy will be in the right place and time, and it will happen, and because of the consciousness behind it, creating it. And I think this is what we need to do, is if we do our piece, which is our passion and our piece in our time, with the highest, greatest good for all inspiration behind it, we do that. Just our piece. The next guy does his piece, and it'll be like our own little fusion bomb, only for love across the world. But we can't take it upon ourselves to tell the next guy what to do. So we have to kind of wait for him to do his. Now, how do we do that? By doing ours, because it all works out in time. That's kind of how I view how the clockwork of the world goes.
So what that would suggest is that even though I've done my part, I can't get out of here until you finish your part. Is that about right?
Yeah, I guess. I guess in that
that's the walrus part that the Beatles used to sing about.
But the thing is the term "get out of here." I would rephrase that to say we can't see this work completed until everyone does their part. And it's been this has been going on. It's been going on for I don't know how long, decades, generations, thousands of years. So it's not that we're starting now. It's already been it's already been in progress. So what we might see is the fruition of the last piece, which would be like what would be the we're going to stick with the fusion reactions. We have this increase. So as the energy increases, all of a sudden you have this wave, exponential wave, that culminates in the explosion. And I think we're going to have the same thing, where we'll have this. Time will speed up, things will get faster, more will happen.
And part is too, yeah. I need to say something else.
Right.
One of the creepy parts of this weapon is that it leaves no forensics that we're aware of at this point. In other words, it's clean in that you can go in, and to my knowledge, there is no way to identify its deployment after it's been used.
Well, I was thinking about that, actually, and I came up with a way to possibly recognize it. Is by that fact. How could that much energy and destruction happen without leaving anything in its wake? By virtue of that would be its footprint.
How come the public believes it was an aircraft? How come the public believes that the Pentagon was not hit by an airplane but a cruise missile? And isn't it amazing that it happened to be where all those records were being stored, on terrorism? I don't believe any of it.
No.
And I would suggest you don't, and everyone listening to me don't. And that what you do is you go inside yourself, because that's where the real truth lies of what happened. And what you end up personally believing is going to change our reality.
Or retard the change.
I'm writing about that right now, how to change the movie,
Yeah, it's funny. I started writing too, and what we're talking about was the page I was writing. But the idea being that we can also retard the reaction as well. I mean, this is why you have...
We can retard. That's what they call intentionality experiment, where they're trying to put intention, thought into water, and you restructure it. Now, let's go there for one moment, because this is for account of the idea of the Stanford argument and the distinctional difference between intention and intentionality. They're different. Just like when you try and fix something, you won't. Has to do with internal landscape. Intent is what happens at the end of the day. And intentionality is kind of like Maxwell Smart when he says to Agent 99, missed it by that much.
Mm.
It hasn't quite happened. And so what is happening is your reality, and it's time for you to take charge of that. minding the store, as they say. That's in the purpose of training the mind. That's why I write my books the way I do. I'm trying to give empowerment, the access to footprints to write your own books and carry on all of our someone's trying to call me again and I have to turn it down. It's been a long haul these last 2 months. I have been attacked from so many sides that it's allowing me, it's actually good because it's teaching me what is and is not important in my life. Actually, I don't care much for the drama. I don't. Well, it's creepy. My father had to come all the way from the grave to help me. And I don't know how my father had that kind of insight to have me protected at that moment that I was. I was really lucky.
But this is an example right here of what I'm talking about. Everybody doing their right thing at the right time. It is available when it's needed at the right time.
That is how it works. If you use the mentat that everything happens for a reason and everything leads to something better.
Even the bad stuff,
It's not about good and bad.
Right.
This new cartoon out on Satanism, get a grip, man, put out by Walt Disney. I can't believe it. It was on InfoWars. And it's weird because Satanism is a form of Christianity. It's a weird, perverted form, certainly, but does not exist anywhere else in the world. I had a kid, a 12-year-old, ask me, what's the difference between Lucifer and the devil? And I said that Lucifer was God's favorite that fell from grace. He's down here with us. And that the devil is some construct that is somehow equal or battling God, like God has enemies and things like that. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. Doesn't feel right. Devil is not real. Lucifer absolutely was. He was God's favorite, fell from grace. What are some of the other fallen angels? Let's count them out. Well, there's one called lust, jealousy, rage, anger, sloven. You can name them. In the old books of Solomon, the greater and lesser keys of Solomon, when Enoch was given the names of all the fallen demons, so you had control of them. What that literally means is if you had the demon's name, you could control the demon. That's 17th century magic. So what does that mean? Well, I went out to find out what the demons' names are, like Beelzebub and Ashtaroth. What does that mean? Greed. There's one of your demons. And so they were qualities of man that were not deemed in grace. And what you wanted to try to do is eliminate them from your life to become a true purpose. And the true purpose was why we were God's favorite. We have a choice. The problem is we don't actually have free will. We have true will because we do not have full disclosure. If we had full disclosure, then it would be free will and be able to make the choices as I would. But because we don't, we are now being distracted by what is important to each of us. It's different for each of us. Most of it is around family. When you get down to core issues, it's your future and your past, your father and your daughter. But for me, I came from a small family. I am proud of what I have done up to this moment in my lifetime. I've probably done more than most men, and so I feel blessed. And that is what we all should be seeking is joy. That's what the Quakers call purpose, is to find joy in everything. And so instead of it being work, it's my pleasure, that kind of thing. And that's where each of us contribute to each other in that way. That's how I'm starting to sense how this whole big picture works. And it's not about time. Time is an illusion. And so it's time for each of us to get off the couch and put the Dorito corn chips down.
Especially since they're GMO and all kinds of other stuff.
Well, your food choices are going to, and your water choices are going to affect your health way more than anything. Anger, everyone that I have ever met that had cancer had anger issues. And I go back, and it was the anger first, not the cancer. And the cancer is like a reflection into the physical world of something more spiritual that needs to be immediately addressed. We all need fine-tuning. We have the good, the bad, and the ugly from both parents, and then life's random situations curved up by your personal friends, which, by the way, friendships are probably the highest form of love there is. Someone that you don't like him because, in spite of his faults, you love him because of him. You have taken that person in as part of the universe that needs healing. And that's how you look at everything, or I try to, in metaphor. And when I do that, my consciousness is literally working on a finer layer of information, like emotional or EQ is more important than IQ. The sense of how you feel about it. That's important. That's called internal landscape. That's my shirt. Look at this. I don't know if you can see it. It says 1/2 full.
Yeah.
My shirt. That is the idea of looking at something that you were given as to oppose something that you lost. And you have both ways to look at it. You have a choice. And what is happening is that we are being distracted with things like money, which aren't even real. What's real is your labor, what you did for that money. The money itself is an exchange. And that's where we're probably going to go with back toward barter.
But if you back up a little bit, though, this distraction that's going on, distraction is the wars, Ebola, whatnot. You got to keep. And what I look at is the distractions are becoming more ridiculous. So to me, it sounds like they're more desperate because more people are realizing what is real, that they have to turn up the volume.
They're looking for a way to clear martial law. And they're going to do it this way with a bunch of shootings in different grade schools that never happened, like Sandy Hook. Didn't happen. It's a run on our Fourth Amendment, and it backfired. Everybody went out and bought weapons. But that's what it was. It was a distraction. And Batman, and shooting up in the Aurora thing, and Hurricane Sandy. Did you know there are people that still do not have power from that failure on the East Coast?
Wow.
Still do not have power. Now, there is a good place to go, is a little bit more independent with at least 10% or 20% of what you eat, you grow it yourself. And if you grow extra, then you can trade or barter for the things you don't do, like bread. Someone out there is making bread. Someone else is out butchering. Barter. So pick in your garden what you like best. My office manager likes pickles, and she makes relish. So it's all stick to what you enjoy. And you have until 2025 to get it together. That's the deal. If you don't have it together by 2025, you're going to be SOL. That is the truth of it. I think that's when it will be. That's what NASA document quotes as the point where everything is in chaos. And if you have your system together, with power, I drive my 280Z, restored 280Z off my garden. I can't drive it out of town because I don't have any other sources for alcohol, but I can grow it right here for my Z, so I can get around town. You could have a motorcycle or something like that, probably make another town, have a barter situation where you have extra alcohol you can get from Roseburg or, that kind of thing.
Well,
you want to talk more about the Fullerenes? we've gone around in things, and that's good. And these are things that all need to be said, because I don't think even Ebola is the real Ebola. I don't think it is. Ebola is not supposed to be airborne. This one is.
Well, I don't think it is, though. I don't think it
Huh?
is airborne. I mean, I'm not an expert, but the way I'm looking at this thing and using my truth meter, which you call your gut, and analyzing it,
Truth meter.
the one thing is they want it to come here. It's obvious by their actions, leaving the borders open. They're not testing people. They want it to come here. But they don't really want it to come here because they would be open to it. So what I'm thinking is they want the cover of Ebola where they can now target individuals or groups by administering some type of disease.
You mean like the troops that just went over to Africa are being immunized?
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, I don't even think they don't even need
it that way.
They don't even need the disease. They need the fear. What just happened in Chicago the other day was
declare martial law.
Yeah,
to be able to close down a place.
So what happened in Chicago the other day is a guy went on a plane. He was an African American guy. He gets on the plane and he sneezes, and he says, "I came back from West Africa, I might have Ebola." Well, the people started panicking on the plane. It was on a runway. They stopped the runway. They brought in hazmat teams, which escorted him off and checked the plane and all this stuff. And he's like, "Well, I was just kidding." And he was, he was rained. He's rained on He was arraigned on bioterrorism, where he can face up to 60 years in prison.
Yeah. What do you think that's going to do to the local economy when they close down the mall he went to?
Well, but
and then people having a real stress with money because they can't go to their business to open it.
Well, I mean, that may come, but I'm not even going that far yet. I just noticed the reaction to the people. If I was sitting next to this guy in the plane and he said that, I wouldn't even care, because I know I'm not going to get Ebola from him sneezing next to me. It's not going to happen. I mean,
well, you didn't have a tongue kiss with him, did you?
No, I didn't. No.
That's how you get it.
Yeah,
you gotta get bodily fluid.
You have to. It's like people being afraid of getting AIDS. You have to. It's a more aggressive thing. Now, what he said. What about Africa? Well, in those areas, I mean, they said when they mentioned Sierra Leone and Liberia and all those people are that's like the worst places in Africa. It's It's run by thugs. There's terrible sewage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
that's a good word.
It is. You can see how it could spread because people are literally eating each other's garbage to stay alive and so on. I mean, you could see how it could spread in an environment like that versus here where you have to work to spread these things.
Yeah, fear is the first enemy of man. That's Castaneda, right? Close and clear. The projection of the shadow, the fear of what could happen. Now, that's your upper brain that gives you scenarios of possibilities. Am I going to get through this without a problem, or there is still possibly a problem? If there's a possibility, you see, your upper brain is here basically to make your beliefs true. And so it will make it do that. It'll make it happen. Internal landscape. And when you think about your gut, now that is closer to spirit. That's why you're here. That's like a timber wolf or something there. The reason we are so attracted to animals like that is because they're closer to doing their true self. And that's what Crowley used to call true will. And what you do is what you end up doing. And you have options on how to do it. You can do it kicking and screaming and fighting. That creates what we call karma. Or you can be more like Buddha, where the mountain comes to you. It's called flow, where you allow the unfolding in the moment and are enough in touch with yourself as to whether to do this or that. And this is not me. I'm not going to Syria to bomb a bunch of people I don't even know. That's not even right. It's not right. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. I know there will be people that either need the money or are blinded into believing that they're doing something good for the country. That's why I would like you to play Satanism. When I'll upload the link and or the big file. It's a beautiful movie. It runs it down correct. Everybody gets it. when the guy lays it out straight. And Dennis Kucinich just came out with another paper on why we're in Syria. And it's all about oil. And we're going to lose. And that's why it's a last gasp thing. It allows the military to build up. That's foreign martial law. And they'll try to do it at the same time Ebola is a big fear. They'll try to distract you, one for the other. Do not allow yourself to want to go to war. I mean, why would you want to go to war?
No, I tend to look at some of the media and watch how they handle things because a lot of it's all they're following the program. But a show that Lucinda watches is The View, and it has I can't remember, Rosie O'Donnell on there, who got tossed off for bringing up 9/11 years ago. They got her back, and Whoopi Goldberg's on there, and
Rosie O'Donnell.
She went off on a tangent. She went off and saying this whole Ebola is a distraction to keep her looking about from war and all this stuff. I was like, finally, somebody on a quote mainstream thing said it, and they showed the camera guy, the guy who's directing. He's telling her to cut, like stop it, and Whoopi Goldberg got involved, and he says, look. You want us on this show? You said we can talk about
Whoopi
things.
Goldberg, too. And Sean Penn just did one out on the human experiment. I saw it a couple nights ago.
That's the name of it? The human experiment? It's called the human experiment?
It's called the human experiment with Sean Penn. It's about chemicals in everything. How many of them are approved? How many are not? And where that's all going.
Now, I'm not saying when I mention this incident, I'm looking at it from here is a very popular mainstream talk show, whatever. They're saying these things, and the people are applauding in the audience.
I know, isn't it great?
This is why I'm saying that this stuff is like right under the surface, and all it needs is a little match, and
Well, at that point, then Ebola will make its ugly head. There will be martial law, and there will be blood. The movie. It'll be like that. That's what it's about, oil.
Yeah.
And it's nuts. And if you could just say no.
Yeah, that is
Stop
it.
Driving. Stop driving.
That is the
Stop
answer.
Needing that much oil. Cut your oil needs in half. Watch what happens next. Walk. Ride your bicycle. Don't go for a trip.
When I say just say no, what I'm referring to is whatever they want you to do, you say no. We go on living our lives. You see, the fear is you have a guy standing there with the big club, and you have 25 people, and he's sitting there going, "I'm going to beat your head," and no one wants to be the one who gets the head beat. What they realize is if all 25 people rushed him, the problem's solved. And I'm not saying I'm using a violent metaphor, but my point is,
I understand. Yeah,
they can't do all of us. They could do some of us, and the fear is, will that one be me? No, I'll just go along. But if it gets so bad, the reason why you have revolutions and stuff in other countries, it gets so bad that it doesn't matter because the death is the option. We're all dying, we're all falling apart, and so a lot of times what ends up happening is it gets so bad that somebody ends up standing up, and then someone else ends up standing up, and then the next thing you know, the bad guy is falling down, and then you have this awakening light. Wait a minute, type of thing. I'm using metaphors that are somewhat violent, but I'm saying this to say no. Now you might be clubbed on the head for saying no, and you got to realize you're all going to die sometime. Yes, the idea is how did I live, and if you lived doing that process of finding your part in the world and doing it and standing up for what's right and not accepting what's wrong, then when you die, and you will die in a state of grace, helping the world. It's not about staying alive. It's about how you live, and we have to get rid of that. We're all going to die. Get that sense. The body will die at some point, so let's get over that part. I will admit.
Well, that's why they're trying to now suggest immortality, and I'm going to suggest that time is a duration of consciousness, and that actually the physical plane where we are right now, the place we're enjoying, is where we're going normally to be sick, and that this isn't real. What's real is your imagination. Start there. Take responsibility for the thoughts you choose to entertain.
Well, how I would phrase it is that what's around us is real, but it's created by our imagination. So, in other words, if what we think and what we believe happens. Yeah. So, I mean, it's real. I mean, I can, if I got a hammer and hit myself in the head, I get a bruise. But we've created the hammer. So if we didn't create the hammer, I wouldn't have got bruised. And it's kind of simplistic, but the point is if we decide to go forward with our creative abilities, and this is why we got to keep distracted. They got us watching TV that's programming us. Because if we creatively put out into the world change, it cannot be stopped because the creative power is so huge. But it could be diverted, and it could be diluted, and it could be manipulated. We've created this world around us.
So I just had one other thought while you were talking. I wanted to, on the Fullerene, that I wanted to add in, so you can splice this in at some point or wherever. But do you remember you asked me how would the bomb be deployed in a human being?
Mm-hmm.
That would probably be something that I studied back in the 70s and will be part of a book I'm writing called The Spook Central. It was the work I did at Paranormal Studies for MRU. And one of the things we looked at, not fire starter, but spontaneous combustion. There are people that just they go up in flame. How does that work? We started with superconductivity and things, and I'm going to suggest that the Fullerene bomb, if it's inside us, that's the way it'll appear. It'll be a spontaneous combustion where you're just vaporized into nothing.
It depends. If that happens, if the word vaporize into nothing, all right. But if it's set on fire and burned to death, that's not too pleasant. Vaporizing is one thing.
But the thing will be so from the inside out, like microwave, you won't even have a moment of consciousness on it.
Well,
I
guess that's
then what will happen is you'll be outraged because you'll wake up and realize that someone did an illegal weapon on you. I believe that we were most likely invaded about 200,000 years ago. I don't know what invaded us. It's not aliens as we would normally think of, except that about 200,000 years ago, a fourth genome showed up in the blood types, O negative. And really, it's an unknown genome that we don't know where it came from and is what made man's Latin genus and species change from Homo sapien to Homo sapiens sapiens. And there are people in psychology that write about that. Dr. Charlotte Bach at the Warburg wrote her thesis topic called Homo Mutant, Homo Lumen. There are, Lake Body, that was Jungian psychotherapy. Now, with this construct in mind, I'm now understanding that this Fullerene bomb and where it could possibly go in metaphor is unbelievable. It's like as open-ended as nuclear energy. And what we have just done now is start the discussion of its possible uses in our society and how it could be integrated in to be a super antioxidant, to protect you from radiation sickness. And then I'm reminded of that movie Elysium and the haves and have-nots and how they structured the two universes, with immortality and the other with strife and pain. Seek your joy. That will always lead you toward what you're supposed to be doing here. And if you want to have a better guide on that, James Hillman, one of my teachers, has written a book called The Soul's Code, In Search of Character and Calling. That book is monumental in its talk about your purpose and your spirit. The manner, spirituality is not what you do, but how you do it, the quality in which you go about your personal belief. And to go after the nature of spirit is where it's all going to be, where the richness is found. Seek your joy. Seek your joy. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to come off like the Reverend, that good Reverend Rich.
No, that's true. I see, because what that is is off tangent to what people think they should be seeking. You know?
That's right. That's right. We're being distracted on what is important. Go internal. It's going to be different for each of us. In my non-local mind book, I'm actually going to have a set of tests that you can do to find out what your personal beliefs are. This is I did that in Power Tools. I'm going to expand that because people that try to find a soulmate will miss the mark if their beliefs are different. And all our beliefs are different from one another. We have different, styles of belief. And a marriage, for example, a union. Now, your relationship to the opposite sex is something that's also going on inside yourself. And so your best mate has always been to find someone that most truly reflects your anima, your inner feminine part of self in yourself. And in the case of women, it would be the animus. What is the most perfect male? And when relationships break apart, it's because that person is no longer reflecting those qualities that are inside yourself. And that's where the conflict occurs.
Or can I say that person no longer has that qualities in themselves, so therefore their mate is no longer matched up with their inside?
The more correct way to say that, though, would be that person is actually, in fact, different than you and actually has different values. Can't make judgment on that. I had a girlfriend once that felt that everything being complacent was more desired than knowing the truth. She would rather not know the truth and live in this world of bliss. I can't find any fault with that. It's not where I want to go. And so we're different, each of us. She didn't want to have hassle in her life. She would like to have a simple, easy life. And so what if they're doing chemtrails? That I don't care to know about such things. She is made her choices. That's her right to make choices. But that's why she was no longer my girlfriend either. I felt truth was more important than comfort. And really, there's a lot of people that would put comfort in ahead of truth.
Let me rephrase what I said, because what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like it was their, I'm fine, they made some choices, therefore we split up. But I myself, inside me, could regress or change differently, and that person could be the same, and so they didn't really do anything. I changed, they didn't. Would be the other side. Okay. So
in the tree of life, which is this roadmap, there's the male and female path. I'm in middle pillar, the middle one, but the two outer paths, the two paths that go to God, are the hermit and the lovers. You either do an androgynous, or you do it with a partner. And the path that crosses them, forming the triangle, this one right here, is in the middle of the abyss. You know what that path is? That path is called humor. And why you probably laugh all the time. That's the truth. I am a hermetic kabbalist. I am becoming enlightened. And I'm trying to actually, literally, experience both the androgynous, June Singer, that's a good book on androgyny, and or the lovers. And that's how we go to God. Once you know yourself. And that's where your purpose is all about. Once you identify what that is, you essentially, in metaphor, pick up where you left off in a last life and continue that journey.
All right, since we're now on to metaphysics and spirituality, let me ask you a question. I was pondering that perhaps people, me or anybody else, they could be doing things unconsciously that are actually working internally, so that at some point the light switches on and it reveals this fine-tuned engine underneath. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, like anger is the emotion that tells you when things are not going the way you want to. Now, that energy is really cool for washing a floor, even though the anger might be somewhere else. Once I wash that floor, I feel a betterness about it because the floor is spotless and it represents how hard I felt about that thing. Now, everything, where you know what your true will is that it's effortless. Like radio, like me doing radio now, it's not an effort for me to do this. It's like, that's why I'm good at that. It's effortless. It's like you seek those things.
Natural.
That's right. And that is what you would call, geez, everything's just coming to me. That's the flow. It just seems like it's all happening for me. Then there is Liber Oz, Crowley, when someone would thwart your will, then you have the right to kill them. And that is natural in civil law and the way that all works. But there it is, Liber Oz. And that's what I say to the people that are hassling me. Whatever that's about, I hope they are doing their true will. I'll bet they're not. And at some point, they're going to have their own accountability to that, just like the people doing geoengineering. Did you know that that's a recent thing? A congresswoman has actually come out and said that there is no accountability with geoengineering and that Congress is powerless. Now, how does that work unless it's transnational corporation?
Yeah, or somebody might add extra-worldly, too.
China is right now trying to take over all of the utilities in Canada. And that's what Bundy Ranch was about, was China trying to take over the power grid in that area. China owns 50% of Grants Pass, Oregon. How does that work? It would take less than 5% people shopping at Walmart that would close Walmart down. And Walmart will close shortly when the petrodollar fails. That's because everything from China will quadruple overnight. That's how it's going to play. You already have been told, you can see it coming, and what you need to do now is enjoy what you are. You're sitting there thinking about it. It's so cool. Oh. I love it when I see you that they're speechless.
Well, I'm both learning and analyzing
context, and we have options on how we choose to approach this whole thing. The Fullerene bomb thing is actually an extremely unfortunate turn of events. It's been predicted in NASA with the new weapons, and what they have now is what I would call a neutron Fullerene bomb, fusion bomb. It is a Fullerene fusion bomb. And it's very effective because its deployment is simple. And it is, if you went down into Livermore, there is the National Ignition Facility. And what they've done is built a 30-foot replica of a Fullerene molecule. And they have small windows that they can put the laser light in. And it shows Arnold, and if you do photo gallery, you'll get a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger looking at the target. It's a little tiny thing for a 30-foot thing. A little tiny thing for a 30-foot thing. Now you're getting the idea of water molecule with 60 buckyballs. And what they're doing is putting in approximately 23 or less deuterium and or tritium atoms. And when they port in that laser beam, it hits it put it inside at some point in space, and it hits the wall and reflects amplitude, starts to reflect around, and it always going through the center into a little point that is where your deuterium is, and it goes into fusion process. And let me tell you, the energy on something like that is absolutely the fourth phase of water, and what we call fourth state of matter, plasma, or the first state, if you will. Mm-hmm. And if you can stack these things in nanotubes and you wrap nanotubes around nanotubes, you have a weapon the likes of which can bring down anything. You could put it in an airplane and pour it in the laser beam, and the plane will disappear, and there will be no forensics. You won't be able to find anything because it's completely vaporized. That's how hot it gets.
Well, that sounds a little bit like the plane that disappeared in Malaysia.
Well, there's a lot of possibilities. Who knows on that? I know that Baghdad Airport was not tactical nukes. What was it? And 9/11 was not an airplane or airplane fuel. What was it? And why are they not telling us? And when that captain came to the public as 9/11, talking about all his fire buddies that were lost in trying to save lives during 9/11, I have to say the collateral damage was not worth it. And how dare they make that kind of decision in sending firemen in to try to save people in a controlled demolition? Something's wrong here, and something needs to be said absolutely about it. And the fact that the news reporting isn't covering it, shame on them. There's enough data out there. How come a really good reporter hasn't taken it apart? I'm just a scientist like Judy Wood. There's others now that are saying this is impossible the way it works. Who is reporting that, and why is it not being reported to the public? And that is what I call distractions. All you have to do is take an aircraft from China or from Africa, and somebody sneezes on that airplane. What do you think is going to happen next? They're going to have all kinds of excuses to pull martial law, just like they did in Nazi Germany. It's going to go just like that if you don't wake up and protest now. And I don't have the rule on how to do that. Wigington has started an intention program apps that you can find on his website. There's a really nice video where you can get an apps for your phone where you take pictures from all over where you are to start uploading and showing how extensive geoengineering is right now. Fukushima may likely be an extinction event with the current management. All 4 reactors are not about meltdown. 3 of them actually exploded as nuclear explosions and threw a bunch of stuff up in the stratosphere.
I actually saw real time. I saw one of those explosions. It happened to me watching it, and it said, "Boy, it looks like a mushroom cloud."
That's not. That was a nuclear explosion that dropped a bunch of plutonium. It's actually they've had plutonium on the NETC, the Nuclear Emergency Tracking Center, showing particulate coming down in Nevada and New Mexico that was plutonium. We've seen dandelion that had a particulate hit it, and then it turns into some sort of Jack and the Beanstalk kind of plant. Grows up to about 6 or 8 feet tall as a mutation. The children in Tokyo, they're experiencing now almost a 38, not 22 anymore, 38%. Let me just take this. Hello? No, I don't know who that is. No, sorry about that. I'm here alone right now. I don't know where my office manager is, so she took off. Here I am trying to paste things together as a retired, grumpy old man with no toys, just armchair physics and what I can find on the internet. They're going to try to close the internet down for a source of information shortly. I don't know what to do except mind my own store and try to eat more correctly. If Ebola comes into the United States and it really is Ebola, you can't get it if you're eating proper nutrition. And if you do get it for whatever reason, you can simply do it with emergency acerola vitamin C or intravenous, which is absolutely what they do. And so, 6 grams a day. It's not Ebola. It's Ebola-like because Ebola is not supposed to be airborne, and this one is.
Well, they say it is. I'm having my...
So that's not
doubts.
Ebola. There was, just for the record, an Ebola-like look-alike that Russia developed to have China eat itself up when they were at war, called the zombie virus. That was back in the 80s. And the three scientists that developed that weird thing that led to all the zombie movies, Zombieland is my most favorite, was put on a shelf, and the three scientists have subsequently died of old age. And so there's nobody around that can actually identify literally if this is the same thing. And my guess is if this isn't it, it's a look-alike to that one, which is more like the zombie thing that Russia developed. Now Russia's in partnership with China and Iran. And so that's all good stuff, I guess. It's about time the petrodollar crash and burn. It's wrong. It has been wrong. The Fed, all the structure around it, the inflation, Wall Street, etc. There is another video I'm going to send to you that I'd like you to post called Humans Need Not Apply. That is a great video and talks about robotics and where we're going. And all of this is projected in an overview in that NASA document of yours. That actually, there was a document that came out 20 years earlier. The writer is unknown. He was published with Feral Press in a book called Secret and Suppressed, and it was called Secret Weapons for Silent Wars. Feral Press. Okay. Now, what does it mean when I know four of the people in that book? Tom Lytle, Michael James Reconasuccio, the list goes on. Michael James Reconasuccio is in that book as Captain Crunch. That he was out of Tacoma. So Secret and Suppressed by Feral Press. Excellent, excellent book. Tom Lytle has an article in there on the unknowing escape of Jim Morrison out of Paris by the Swedish Secret Service. I got these letters after that book came out from Jim Morrison, and I was working out of a laser company in Arkansas, and I actually went down there, and there he was, a fat Jim Morrison. He put on a whole load of weight, was working in laser physics. It happened. I saw that. I don't know if it's the real Jim Morrison. He looked like him, and he certainly had all the information. Tom wrote that book on the demise of Jim Morrison in that Secret and Suppressed book. And wow. Michael James Reconasuccio is another article in there about Captain Crunch and the old urban legends from the time when I was in military. So, but I knew Michael. I grew up with him.
Now you said the NASA documents that I have. Which one is that?
The NASA 113-page PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
That's every 20 years, NASA, which is space agency, just like in the movies, they're above even Navy now. It's Navy, but NASA became more than Navy, space ships. NASA put that document out called Secret Weapons for Silent Wars. And now, 20 years later, this new one on the new direction of weapons, and welcome to the Borgs, the bots, and the humans.
And is
you have that document, right?
That's what you gave me last time? The PowerPoint?
Yeah,
okay, all right. I got that then. All right.
If you can't find it, let me know. It's worth, just go to page 8. If I load that, I'll read that to you. That in itself is very, very funny.
What's new documents? I mean, new weapons?
I'm sorry?
It's called New Weapons.
Oh, I'll give you the NASA document. I'll upload it right now. How's that sound?
All right.
Do that right now.
Because I'm going to, every time we do these things, I do put all the documents on my own servers, and I have links to them, so they're not tied to any other place. Of course, I want to tell you, while you're looking that up, I have had unprecedented amount of hack attempts on my server. So I have my own physical server, right? So I'm not...
You're not exaggerating. You're telling me the truth. I got you. Yeah, I'm... there's a lot of people that... I'm... I know that I don't know. What was I sending you? I forgot.
The NASA documents? PowerPoint?
NASA. Yes, thank you. I'll do that right now.
Well, I'll be saying this basically for the watcher listener.
What's that?
I'll be telling the watcher listener.
Well, it's I want to load it anyway. Hold on, NASA. NASA. There you are. There you go. And I'm going to open it. Okay, I've opened it. That's what I was doing. I'll send it to you in a minute. I wanted to read one page here.
Okay.
This is what it is. It's 113. The title of the document is The Bots, Borgs, and Humans Welcome You to 2025. And it's put together in the next slide, page 3, is a list of all DARPA and all the different people this document went to. Then, as the presentation is meant to incite thought and discussion, blah, blah, blah. The page 5 is inputs to future warfare, warfighting concepts development, enemy after next, and blue enemy. That's what this one's designed. And we need going in assumptions, and then there's need to plan differently. World is in the throes of triple exponential technological revolutions in information transfer, biotechnology, and nanotechnology. Changes occurring at the scale of months rather than instead of decades. And then we go to the one I want to read you right now. Okay, we're going to call you Spaceship Earth. The crew are plundering the Earth's supplies, tinkering with the temperature and life support controls, looking for the instruction manual, engaged in bloody skirmishes at every corner of the vessel, and increasing the size of the crew by 2 million people per week. That about cover it? I mean, that's pretty accurate. And that's just page 8. It's 113 pages long, and it runs it down on the way it's going to go down.
That's right, now, who actually authored this? NASA?
This is NASA.
NASA authored this. Okay.
Yeah. It's on their letterhead and everything. I'm going to send it to you right now.
Okay.
Just like that Air Force document. What did you think of that one?
Which document was that now?
The one on teleportation.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I saved this part. Once we got it all down, I want to get into teleportation. Now, you mentioned in that buckyball, there were some openings for the laser to go into. All right, that giant one.
Yeah, that's
right.
in the my under Fullerene. You'll see the National Ignition Facility, and if you do a Google on all the pictures, you'll get to see the whole thing being constructed on up, including Schwarzenegger looking at the target.
Okay, great. So getting to the teleportation aspect of it, when you have the actual little 1 nanometer balls in public out in the world, and they're going to shoot with a laser, how does the laser get into it?
It's a new technology that was developed by the military called supercavitation, and it's the way the light beam is bent in space gravity, where they teleport it about 25. Yeah, you got the NASA one. I'm going to now give you the Air Force one. Where is that? Just to make sure you've got it. Oh, here's one I haven't even talked about, the Mars Project. You'll like that one. That's another thing I'm doing. What's going on Mars?
Yeah, I think I got that and I posted it, but we never talked about it. But I left it in the post anyway.
Well, then that's.
But let me go to the teleportation though, because what we're saying is that you're shooting the laser.
What they've done is they've done that. Yeah, what they're doing, and I'm looking for that paper so that I can upload it right here. RS poop. Tacky Pythagorean symbol. Oh, there it is, right there. There it is. Here it's coming.
Okay.
Now, okay. This is a Navy document that is now open to the public. It has the math and the physics on how it all works in this document. You can slide it through yourself. There are some in my Fullerene. There are the patents that were put out in 2003 and 2011 on this new Fullerene neutron bomb. Most of it's in California. I'm going to guess it's down in Argonne, at Livermore. And the facility, the National Ignition Facility, is creating a macro buckyball so that they can actually get more down into the physics of how that's actually working on a quantum mechanical level. It's not a quantum mechanical level. Actually, the way they're using now is holographic physics with resolution of information. And so they build a big one and they can see what that does. The one they've got in California could blow up the world. That's like, could blow up the world, like a super hadron collider. It's the National Ignition Facility. Kind of scary. I got a couple more things. Did you see that?
But I like to say, well, the one they have in California could blow up the world. Can you pass me the ketchup, please? Yeah, okay, yeah. Would you like a little salt with that? Yeah, it could blow up the world. You just say it like, ta-da.
It's not that, but they do. If you want to know what's going to happen next, follow Hollywood.
Yeah.
And, with what was that one with the gravity wave bender in Houston that was called The Event, where they bend space and something creepy comes in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Skinwalker Ranch all over again. I'll tell you, there's stuff going on in the world of physics. That gravity wave generator in Houston is actually owned by Washington State University. It's managed by Caltech, California Institute of Technology, and Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but it's owned by Pullman, where I came from. And some of that is because of the work I did when I was at Pullman. They brought in Dr. Knowles from Yale to build a linear accelerator out at on facility on campus. Some places like the University of Washington has a small nuclear reactor on the campus. Well, did you know that, by the way, everybody at the UW? It's right downtown, right in the center near Frosh Pond. And so the gravity wave generator was an offshoot of Dr. Raymond Bend and Dr. Donaldson and Dr. Bender working with me as an undergraduate student at Pullman. And what we're doing now is bringing all of my physics from over 45 years, 50 years, from high school and mesons. When I did that meson field theory, that was on the muon, creating a tachyon factory. I was the guy that did the math on that. And so here I am watching the evolution of my limited understanding of that at the time I was doing it. And now seeing the fruition of how it would apply into physics. What they're doing with my original works is they create a tachyon factory that creates what they call now Bremenstrahlen radiation. At the time I did it, it was called Cherenkov. Things morph, move. That was based on Dr. Cherenkov's Nobel Prize the year earlier on radiation off a nuclear reactor underwater. And really what that's all about is that those particles coming out of that reactor are going faster than the speed of light in water. They're like closer to the vacuum. And that's the index of refraction. And what happens, you get a radiation pattern off that's now called Bremenstrahlen radiation. But it's particles slowing down.
Now, don't the particles have matter? No matter how small the particle, there's some matter. Well, so how could it go?
Richard Feynman, Feynman's concepts now would suggest that matter isn't what we really think it is, like gravity. There is a relationship. Gravity, I had a 12-year-old ask me what gravity was. And the way I would try to explain it to a 12-year-old is that if you had a drum, it's Bessel functions, drum theory. If you had a drum and you stretched
rubber,
latex over it, and put a brick in the center of it, it had this, it distorted the space in different places. And you took a marble and you dropped it down. The marble would normally tend to go straight down, it just fall down the hole. But because there are external forces like Coriolis forces on the spin of the Earth, the water going down updrain goes one way over the other, depends on which part of the hemisphere you're on. That's Coriolis forces. There's other kinds of forces that cause the marble to react to the brick, and that is what we call gravity. But Boeing has a magnetic monopole. that they're now using as an inertialess craft. And so there is another application of fullerenes where you form the supercavitation process and you create a structure that's inertialess. That means you can go from 0 to Mach 60 instantaneously with no gravity. And that is what the laser beam is doing, and they're doing it now with light. Eventually, we'll move up into fullerenes being, put into whatever they want as a target. And that will be your ray gun, where they then beam you with fullerenes and then activate it with a laser beam.
All in one step.
Well, or in a series of ABC.
Mm-hmm.
The 1-2 punch, the Texas two-step.
Now going back to the light going into the ball, you mentioned that it's
they poured it in.
Teleported in. So I mean, teleporting, according to my Star Trek knowledge, is like going outside of our space-time continuum and then popping back in.
Oh, open that
file
where that molecule picture I showed you of cavitation. There it is,
yeah.
Cavitation water, JPG. If you look at that, that is what you're doing with space. And when you go from one surface point down through the donut to the other one, it's instantaneous where you don't have, and you're into the out of. You go from this side to that side. And that is the para and ortho water that we were talking about earlier, hands, right and left-handedness going, and that comes out of Roger Penrose's math in torus twistor space to be distinguished from white holes and black holes. Oh yeah, there's probably a living color.
But I'm still trying to figure out the mechanism and how you would get inside from the outside by following. I'm using the.
You bend space with a magnetic monopole.
Okay. Well, how does that all
works? And what they do is it surrounds you. I'm guessing, I don't know this, I'm guessing they tried their first human experiment with the Challenger using HAARP, and it didn't work. You have to create a large enough sphere around that it encompasses everything, or you have an explosion like we did with the Challenger. I don't know how that all works. I'm just going to guess that there's something more going on. The process is not cavitation, it's super cavitation. And there's a distinctional difference between the one physics to the other, and that's where we're going now, is with super cavitation. And that is Euler's equation divided by 2 for the handedness reality.
I mean, because I'm seeing, and I put up on the screen already, I've seen this cavitation water. What makes the supercavitation different than the picture of cavitation?
That link is in there. There's a link in there that gives you a Wikipedia with the mathematics.
Okay.
And you'll see that explained with math in that NASA, not the NASA, the Air Force document on how the cavitation process works. They call it cavitation, it's supercavitation. It's different than cavitation, which we normally associate with air and easy water around a propeller. That's how you identify what kind of a sub it is, the type of cavitation that is following the sub.
Okay.
I have a link I'm going to send to you, a link that's incredible on structured water using 24 and 23 hertz, and how you can make the water appear to be going backward like a hubcap does on certain kinds of automobiles. It's structuring within the structuring. That's a metaphor of how we're setting water up on a quantum mechanical level or nanotubes, making them into nanotubes. It's unbelievable where this technology is going. It's very exciting, and the possibilities of having a space elevator and a type of super antioxidant way beyond, grapeseed or whatever, that kind of thing, laetrile, that will go in and isolate certain kinds of structures that are extremely toxic to biological processes. The possibilities of where this can all go is just as endless as nuclear energy was fission.
So
Now we're talking about fusion, putting things together, making something else.
now surrounding the toxins, they would be protected from interacting with the tissue because they're inside this buckyball, right?
That's right. It wraps themselves around. It actually, it's like little doors that have geometries that will allow certain kinds of structures to be isolated. That's what they did on a macro scale with polymer. The polymer is that they're desiccating is in the nanometer region. It's like a large, what do they call it? A large virus. It's a bacteria that is the size of a large virus, 10 to the minus 9 meters. And so, rather than 10 to the minus 6. And so you have this molecule creating a polymer plastic, pouring it out. And when they do, they hit it with barium oxide, and it acts as a desiccant. It will actually do that to you in your body. It will, and for all the water you have in your body, some of it isn't accessible to you. And if you micro dehydrate, what is that going to do to your immune system?
All I know is I can't seem to drink enough water these days.
Well, that's a good sign. Just keep pumping it down. That ought to be better for you. There may be at some point, using fullerenes again, like shungite water filters, or your Brita or your Berkey, they all use this carbon. And so I'm going to make a little video on how to make your own, carbon filters, for water at some point. Activated charcoal is what we call that, where you take your charcoal and you activate it. And so it will grab very tiny bacteria and certain kinds of metals and filters crap out of your thing, like, coliform and H. pylori, some of the CP stuff that's in a lot of our water.
Yeah, I do have those. I actually use them to filter distilled water. While I have distilled water, I buy it. I filter it through there just in case there's plastic or anything else.
So you should have at least 3 days of water on hand for if and when the grid goes down in Chicago. And you should, for each person in your family, including pets. And then you should have a work plan that on day 2, you start generating new water. Have from your work plan of how you clean. Where do you get your water to clean it? You should have a game plan on that. The other game plan should be, if at any given moment when the grid goes down and you can't call your loved ones, and each of you know that phones are out, communication's out, where do you go so that you know where to go look for them? You come to the house, everybody should have a plan, bug out plan. And that's with your go bag. Something like Katrina, when Katrina hits and you have 15 minutes in your house, what are the things you grab first? It's called a go bag. Because Katrina and the relationship of that kind of thing, they might have an earthquake warning. You have to evacuate.
Yeah, in fact, Lucinda was telling me these things when she was in California for many years. They had go bag at the bottom of their bed. They pull it out and go right out. Each one had one, their family.
But, Chicago right now, with all the fracking that's going on around you may have a nuclear event. I noticed a lot of RADCON level alerts around where you guys are. So I don't know if that's from fracking or what that's about.
I think you saw my aura in all its brightness.
That's silly. Listen, I have to go. We've been on a long time. So
okay. Well,
did you get enough information, or if you need something that we didn't cover, you need to come back to me.
Okay. Actually, there is one more thing we can get into. Well, actually, let me summarize to this point. We have the C40, it's carbon 40, set up like a Buckminster Fuller type of a situation, that Bucky type thing. Well, hold on.
It's a C60.
C60. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, very important. There's a C70 and there's a C120. There's several other Fullerenes. The one I believe they're using is the 60 carbon atom, C60.
So if you just picture this buckyball of carbons, in the middle of it you have deuterium or tritium, which is heavy water, we'll say, and there is a laser shines in there, it excites all of this, but the structure is so strong that it keeps any type of energy in it until it reaches a critical type of a level where it implodes and causes fusion. Would that be a good way to...
Yeah, we first saw that with dolphins when they were doing what's called sonoluminescence. And that's where MIT started. And then, of course, the National Ignition Facility in Livermore with Lockheed. And Lockheed was doing most of the study on this.
Well, but what we got at this point is the idea is that fullerene is the key because it was able to hold in all that energy until it gets big enough to cause fusion. Is that pretty much what it is?
What they're doing is taking a series of these so-called C60 fullerenes, and they form nanotubes. And the nanotubes are a type of fiber that has fiber wrapped around it and fiber wrapped around it. So you have a series of nanotubes surrounding each other and begin forming a structure that eventually will be used to teleport or not teleport, to be a space elevator into space. There's a Japanese firm that's going in that direction. But that's because of the strength of that with the nanotubes surrounding other nanotubes, and you layer them to the point where you now have a really precision bomb that would leave essentially no rubble when you would, let's say, demolition on a building or something.
Right. So what I'm trying to build here is like we have this fullerene, particular type because of its strength, size, angles, and whatnot. You have the C60. You have the heavy water in it. You're shining a laser in it. The energy is contained in it because of the structure until it goes critical. We have an implosion and a fusion reaction. Now that energy is big enough to explode away the fullerene, right?
No, it doesn't blow the ball up. It does something different, which causes a plasma to form. And that plasma is got a sheath on it, which is stronger than anything that we know of when the sheath is properly formed. And that is a type of thermal explosion, but it doesn't go boom, it goes heat.
Okay, so the heat is emitted outside of the ball through the...
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
All right. Now, the way this is designed...
When you open the ball, more precisely, when you open the ball, you have this light that comes out, which is in a form of a plasma.
Okay.
And it joins itself in these nanotubes, and now you have a type of rope energy that will just disintegrate anything, like the release of neutrons. And it's just unbelievably hot.
Okay, so what I'm seeing is a wonder, though terrible, is that you can take this and you can build these fullerenes into anything and have a walking potential bomb.
Well, that's why I suggested that it is not a far cry that at some point in geoengineering, they use that as a delivery system to put that into everything in everybody, like a bio API. And with that said, then what happens next is the possibility of the good Captain Kirk inhabiting the body of a bad Captain Kirk who discovers he has a weapon that he can bring someone up on a screen and push a button and they disappear. Right. Now, that is science fiction. However, the possibility becomes a probability because this is the direction they've chosen to use fullerenes, as opposed to antioxidants that could go in and remove ionizing radiation and heavy metals from your body. And it's like we have options, and we're going to go in that direction. And the big picture in that direction is going to be a creepy kind of weapon that could be where they hijack your entire air. And you get these. And the thing is, a C60 carbon molecule, this structure, this buckyball, C60, is less, it's 1.2 nanometers. It's really small. And so accurately as they connect these and build ropes, hollow tubes, and then hollow tubes around them, that gives them a precision weapon that's on a quantum mechanical level. They can build it up to precisely the precision of how they need all the metal and slag to occur.
Okay, right.
I don't know that we're high into that quality of precision yet, but that's where it would go if I were in the lab doing it. We would be getting it down to the point where, we're taking care of our next door neighbor's universe.
Yeah, now say I'm trying to get into practical use on this. So if you knew the proper amount to use, you could say you have, take a file cabinet. Inside that filing cabinet material, you could have the necessary amount of these Bucky bombs so that you could literally set off the cabinet and only destroy the cabinet. Because you would have just enough.
Correct.
Yeah, just enough to destroy the cabinet, but you don't have to destroy the room. You could just have the cabinet disintegrate.
I'm guessing that in 10 years after that bomb, the next one would be to be able to remove a specific paper inside that file cabinet. The file cabinet be fine, but the paper disappeared.
Now, using that, the next thing would be a little more cruder and probably more current, is they could build, say, a building with these structured beams and whatnot, having these fullerenes in it, so that if they wanted to pull the building down, they could do that, and then the building would come down.
They make it vaporize like they did, or what it would appear, as Judy Wood would suggest, with a new energy beam weapon. It was not John Hutchinson or the Hutchinson effect. That's an interesting technology, and I can discuss that another time with scalar weapons. But this is more of straight up physics. And I have to tell you, the physics of it, if I can understand how it works at my age, sitting in an armchair off the internet, it isn't a far cry to realize where they really are 10 miles down the road from where I'm thinking already.
Right. So now we have the possibility. Again, I'm trying to recoup here. You have the possibilities of breathing in and ingesting these things through for whatever means, and then they could be used as a weapon. The old getting a shot, getting a vaccine, and having a little microchip with this stuff in it is always comes to play.
Yeah. Speaking of immunization, I wouldn't, at this juncture, with what I know, touch any of that with a 10-foot pole. I would. It's already been shown it's causing dyslexia in our children. Imagine the creepy physics of where they're going with that.
Right, but I'm saying that when we have the situation where they can use it internally as us, they can use it in the structures, they can use it as a weapon. They could send a self-contained bomb with these items in there and the triggering device. They can also have the material, the fullerenes, delivered and then shoot it from space with a weapon. I'm just trying to set up.
Igniting it from space. That's a more proper way. Igniting.
Right. Because we're going to get into the ignition in a minute, but I wanted to set up the. We talked about the structure. We talked about using the material inside it, the heavy water, and so on. We talked about the mechanism of how it would work. We talked about the strength of it. We could talk about how they can literally in the future make super strong structures with these new tubes, at the same time have built-in this demolition material in it, which is kind of crazy.
Well, that's just one aspect of what they could do. That whole thing could also be part of an avatar program where you're no longer human. There's all kinds of possibilities. I can tell you that I don't know, because I'm not physically in the laboratory with my toys now to test my own ideas of what I think is going on. That's what I used to do. Now I'm just like what they call an armchair physicist. I read off the internet. It's full of disinformation. And what I'm trying to do, using my own common sense, is try to connect dots that would tell me what's really going on, what really happened at 9/11, which we may never know. But I can tell you that technology was available back then. It's now gone so far into the future. I can't, I'm starting to project the possibilities of bio APIs and what Prometheus movie might have suggested as the engineers. And now we're out of control, and they're trying to set up, some kind of control mechanism where we're at war with ourselves. I noted that when I worked in physics in the 1970s, we didn't know where we were going in our research. It was blue sky. That's the word we used in the industry. It's open. We don't know where it's going to go. Let's just see where it takes us. Usually it was a dead end. Didn't mean anything, didn't go anywhere. However, we were allowed to explore that so that we knew that. In the 80s, there was a change in intentionality. And when I say that, there was no more intent on the advancement of science for man. Now, there's lots of explanations for that. It was mostly around turning man into a matrix, a battery. So many things in to so many things out, controlling the masses as if it were a commodity. There's a movie out now called Humans Need Not Apply, showing robotics and where we're going in that metaphor. And so with the studies that are going on now that I see happening across the board in the organizations of physics is astounding. What would have normally happened in tens of years are now happening in months. And the cross-pollination because of the internet with who's doing what, how, it's staggering my imagination in the complexity of what's going on today. And the physics is kind of scary. The teleportation originally came out of, Star Trek, like, movies, but it's gone differently now. We have psychic kinds of teleportation that was part of PK phenomena. And then we get into engineering, vacuum, or space-time. This is probably how the direction that I feel is more interesting, where space and time are able to be bent and warped and done, whatever they do. Like, you have everything down into a singularity, and then the imagination blows the bubble up into what's called a duration of memory and a duration of information, how you start it and you end it in these little blocks of particle information that you have in your brain. And that place allows changes where you can increase and enhance the information like a hologram, or you collapse it down into singularity. It didn't happen. And that's the area that I'm writing in right now, is the idea of intent. And it's called the Stanford argument, and the difference between intent, like what actually happens, and intentionality, where Maxwell Smart said at 99, I missed it by that much. And what happens at the end of the day is the place we need to focus our attention. And I think that all of these concepts and ideas are subsets of memes, which are, there is a thing called Church of the Virus, where ideas become viral. And a group of anthropologists have set up a website called Lucifer.com, where the Church of the Virus is an idea that then spreads. I had a really wonderful talk with my Red Queen yesterday. I haven't talked to her for a while. She's in San Antonio, and she's the one that kind of oversees me a little bit. And she said she was in Whole Foods yesterday with her husband eating dinner, and she listened to the people on the table next door, and what they were talking about, this is really important concept, was cable zombie movies. And that's their entire conversation at that table for the whole hour and a half that they were there in this, setting with candlelight and all that. They were talking about zombies. Now, what do you think is going to happen to those people? We create our reality, and these concepts of physics, if it's possible, it's probable, and you can count on it. So that if there's any possibility of something happening, it most likely will. because that's our parallel universe thing where everything's collapsed down into a singularity, and then it's imagination that blows up that singularity into a hologram of layers of information.
All right, let me stop
That's
here
how it
because
works.
I want to mention, for those who may not have noticed, we had to restart. We're having internet issues. I myself have had unprecedented targeted attacks on my servers, so I could probably thank you for that, Mr. Allen, as well as a couple other guests I've had. But anyway, let me get into...
Don't even go there, James, because you'll make it real.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Once you start to think something's going on, of course it is.
Mm. Well, anyway, what I want to get into before we end up losing here is...
Just one moment. Hold one sec. Hello.
Morning.
I'm on radio right now. Do you mind? I'll call you when you're up. When I get up.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. That was my office manager. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's right.
It would have continued ringing. It would have been a hassle.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So we got to this point now. The last question that I have, and I'd like to hear you address it, is we've talked about all these things about this buckyball bomb, but we haven't got the actual, how do they trigger it? Now, we said, yeah, they shine a laser in there, and it does this and that and the other thing. Well, how do they shine a laser in there? That to me is a big question, because if you have this thing embedded in a wall, or if you have it in your body, or if it's this cabinet that's in someone's room, how can they get a laser in there to ignite it, so to speak?
Well, that's the Air Force document that's unclassified just recently on teleportation. The title of the document itself is Teleportation Physics Study, and it's Edward Air Force Base Material Command. And it was a study approved for public release. Distribution is unlimited. This came out in August of 2004. And the basic thing is suggested the kid that did this work, it's excellent. The math is clear and easy to follow. Is he studied with Puthoff. Puthoff was one of his mentors, and that Puthoff came out of remote viewing and what we call PK phenomena, psychokinetic phenomena. Extrasensory perception, paranormal studies that I did, was broken into two categories. We had inside the body and outside the body. This all came from Dr. Ryan. And inside the body was called ESP, and outside the body was called PK phenomena. I go into elaborate definitions of that in my ESP book. Now, with that said, PK phenomena occurred, we started studying those in the 80s, where the analog of astral projection, Shirley MacLaine, Out on a Limb, that plays with a silver cord and Robert Monroe, then went into Ingo Swann, Porogoff, and others that were doing studies in Texas at that time before they were at SRI. And or maybe I've got that wrong, because I was after my time. But what they were doing, they didn't start at SRI until 82, I think. And I had left the military in 79. So I wasn't aware of them. But that remote viewing was called PK, was a form of PK phenomena. There is a bunch of technical papers that you can find on that on Emergent Mind Bulletin. It's a zine on the internet. The editor is Leon Sidorov, a Russian, and she's exceptional. And Alex Kavarenin and Matty Pitkinen were writing about how remote viewing was more of a form of PK phenomena. They brought me in, and my ex-wife and I wrote some papers for them in that same regard because of my previous background, having done the original work with extrasensory perception. And so where this is going is that PK phenomena, apportation, remote viewing, these are all elements, levitation, are elements of what we call PK phenomena. And now we're breaking ground in all of that area, including magnetic monopoles, which would be the levitation concept. Now, all of these have to have a model on how space-time works. because they seem to be outside space-time. In other words, we have quantum tunneling and event horizons. And so this study that this Air Force document did has several different directions where what they did is trying to understand how they moved a piece of light beam here over to here simultaneously outside time and space. It was like at the same moment. The moment it was disappeared here, it was here faster than speed of light. How do you do that? And they had teleporting from here to there instantaneously outside space and time. Distance, didn't matter. Time didn't matter. In fact, it wasn't in my layers of physics in the early years, we called them event horizons and precursor waves. That was a quantum mechanical thing that came out of band theory. Now, what this is doing is moving more into something that's outside of man. This is kind of a creepy thing because we feel, a bunch of scientists, that remote viewing is extremely dangerous. Why? Because something is observing you. It isn't you observing you, that something. It's something is observing you. You're getting a reflected wave. And like we know or have suggested, observer bias, that means that it's changing what it's looking at. Mm. And that's probably why there is some kind of weird psychic war going on, because we're disrupting higher and lower life forms in the food chain of holograms. And I don't understand how this all works. I'm just a good enough physicist to know that instinctually that's what I'd be looking at. I don't have my toys anymore. I could make suggestions on what I think is really important, because my instinct says we're disrupting something like used to say we were when we dropped nuclear bombs. They said when the atomic age occurred, that's when we started being noticed by aliens. That's not true. The aliens go back 200,000 years. So something else is going on here that is outside space and time. And the ability to take a light beam from space and somehow inject it inside, teleportation, inside a Fullerene molecule to allow it to go cold fusion is first observed by the dolphin doing it in their play. And it was a form of cold fusion. When the bubble would break, light would be emitted just as the bubble reached the surface of the water. It would give off this bright light, and it was more than what was inside the bubble. How does that work? And that's where we started talking about teleportation and the nature of folding space.
Okay, so in essence, the light is teleported into the ball and then energizes the ball. Now, That's
correct. What it does, when you take a light beam, a laser beam, certain frequencies, wavelengths, it will reflect against the surface, and amplitude will increase by the square. And another ricochet. Remember, the buckyball has got all kinds of angles to it, so the light beam gets reflected all over the place. And what happens each time it gets reflected, million times, it hits the center and goes through itself. And what happens next is you form a plasma.
Right. I got all of that.
Fusion. What's called supercavitation.
I got all of that. What I guess I'm getting at is, in the one example that you said,
how did they get it inside the buckyball?
Right. I mean, the one example you gave is when they have a big model and they have a hole where they shine the laser in. Okay, that makes sense. So
but the way they do it in an animator is on a I have some other articles here. This is some good references right here. I don't know if I gave these to you. I'm going to give them to you right now. We're going to call this up. I pasted in.
We might want to wait, though.
Check those out.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Yeah, all right, go ahead. All right, well, the thing is I'm trying to still get to the idea of how can today, like, for example, we're talking 9/11, they had fusion bombs, probably did the work because it makes sense.
They probably had Fullerene. They probably had Fullerene nanofibers in the steel, like you would have laid thermite.
Right now, how did that ignite? Then they had like a laser pointing at it. Then in that case,
that's right.
Okay.
From space, but they didn't laser going from A to B. It went teleportation, so that instead of being in space, they went through a wormhole to the inside of the Fullerene molecule.
See, I'm having trouble with that. Or I will agree that is something that's possible, and it maybe we worked on. But to have that technology to that sophisticated level at 2001, and at the same time do things that are really stupid elsewhere, to me that sounds like it doesn't jive. You know.
So it is happening. The patent is 2007, 8, and I think there was an earlier one, and they're talking about the teleportation in 1999, not 2001. 1999 is when the first teleportation study started happening, and in 2002 is when they had the map.
All right. Well, see, what I'm getting at is I think it's possible that the bomb came before the teleportation, so that, in other words, since they had access to the towers, there's already been demonstration that they had all kinds of time to put bombs in the towers. They could have laid all these Fullerene bombs with their own little lasers in there, all ready to roll for that type of technology.
I don't think they even needed the laser there. I think that's the new Star Wars weapon. I mean, that's why they were originally probably using HARP as a waveguide for directing the laser beam. Now they use geo-engineering. They set up waveguides and they can direct it anywhere they want to.
Okay, so
that's
so
that
they could have planted these Fullerene bombs and then shot a laser from space to ignite them.
Yeah,
that's why you see the building falling down.
Yeah, not shot it, more likely teleported it.
Okay, well, okay. I mean, you're the
go through space as you would think of it.
I mean, you're the expert on this. I
don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm just an armchair physicist.
Okay, I would be personally more comfortable with the model that would be non-teleportive at that time, and now we're going into an age of teleporting. You know, that's why I'm kind of.
If they didn't teleport it, they are now.
Well, yeah, I mean that the reason why I'm being technical on this point is because somebody listening may throw out the baby with the bathwater because they'll tie in teleportation in 2001 to now, and I want to split that up. That way, you know how
the baby in the bathwater is a common thing, and the baby in the bathwater is a common thing. What I want everybody to know is I don't really know. These are the dots that back in the early 70s, when I didn't know then too, this would be the way I would start saying how it might work, and then how I would set up an experiment to prove myself right or wrong. And I don't have my toys, but they sure do down in Livermore. And Lockheed has just come out with technology saying they have the cold fusion thing there, and it's all related. So, it's all related, and that's why warning bells go off on me,
right.
saying there's probably somewhere here.
All right, so let's
I don't know, though. And the baby in the bathwater thing is a real serious thing, and so right up front, I want to tell you that I don't really know how it all works.
Yeah.
I can only imagine, with my limited data.
Okay.
And the data, by the way, is coming in so fast now that it's staggering where the possibilities could go. It's ignited my imagination to the creepiness of it. I mean, it's really strange.
Right.
And my worry is that I'm creating this weapon from my imagination.
Well, the idea, perhaps even at least. But now I want to mention people are seeing, perhaps when they're watching this video, they're seeing these little box pop up saying connection's bad. We are having trouble here, but it is working. So we are going forward. Now, let's move forward a little bit. Let's go to the Gulf War and the Baghdad Hotel. You had earlier on in the interview, you'd said that was probably an application of this type of weapon. And by then, they may have had more teleportation.
Oh, yeah. They're getting more. I would guess that this concept is being deployed way more than any of us realize, and realize that there's very little forensics. You can't prove it happened because it's mostly around neutrons. They're gone. There's no forensics. You can't show it. I don't know what to think at this point. This is what I've come up with. Thought I would share it with you with the technical papers that I've found and the way I see them possibly being related. It doesn't mean they are. Like the bio-API thing, I saw some of that about a year and a half ago, and I was staggered with the possibilities of them hijacking our air. And now it's possible they could be delivering all kinds of things to us airborne,
right?
Breathing it from the geo-engineering in that polymer that they're using.
Right. When you said that there's no footprint, it's because when you have something like a plasma bomb, you don't have radiation per se. You don't have powder. I mean, you have nothing. I mean, if there's an explosion, then there's nothing but heat.
Well, you have
and light.
slag. In other words, you have no rubble. It went like Building 7 with slag. They were trying to argue that that was from jet fuel. And just for the record, jet fuel or thermite do not have temperatures enough to vaporize steel, much less turn concrete into slag. So right out of the gate, something else is happening here. And the only thing I know that will slag and vaporize steel is a plasma.
Yeah. So now we fast forward to Giza. You had mentioned that there was a bombing over Giza that you suspected was one of these plasma deals.
There was a light you could see from NOAA and other satellite things, light beams being directed down into Gaza during the explosions that were going on. They could have been having Fullerene bombs. I don't know how that's delivered.
Right.
I don't know whether it's done in the manufacture when they sell you the steel thing. They reinforce it with carbon. Yeah. That's what it is, reinforced carbon.
Yeah.
And so bicycles, that kind of thing. Probably use fullerenes, not necessarily ones with deuterium in it,
right,
or to explosion, but that's what it is.
Now, is there any deterioration of deuterium and tritium so that you can actually measure if you have a fullerene bomb-based carbon nanotube in your structure?
You have a half-life thing. No, I don't. I'm not at this point. That's what Rustam Roy and some of the others were trying to develop. He just died. His ideas of using Raman spectrophotometry as a possible forensics, where you could see if this kind of weapon had been deployed using that kind of thing. They're doing that now with structured water. I'm going to guess that technology is starting to be, developed as well. The H302 part of exclusion zone boundaries is an interesting molecule that might probably somehow be related to the deuterium and what's going on there. I keep getting weird screen noises here and things like that.
Yeah, we're having a difficult time. There's a lot going on.
That's all right. And we're in an area that it's stretching my layer of knowledge base. It isn't that I can't understand it. I just have not been given disclosure.
No,
see the papers. I know what I'm reading. They can't snow me on that part.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not that you're required to come up with every single answer. Is that you're able to?
Well, I don't know.
You're able to sound a horn and answer a lot of it, and point us in the direction where it's going by your own knowledge of it, which is it's incredible help for us to. I mean, worst case scenario is we'll understand when the whole world disappears. As we're disappearing, we'll go, it's the Fullerene bomb. As we disappear.
Really. Well, there's going to be incredible new developments in the nanotechnology in this next 2 months. I am watching the technology on geoengineering change almost on a weekly basis now. It's changing that quickly. I don't know if Dean Wigington is aware of it, but I am. I can see the ramping up of the physics involved of it. It's kind of scary. California is going to be a desert shortly. Everything in California is gone. And I think that's because they realize the coastline is going to go shortly with the so-called big one. And so they're modifying weather to change for pole shifts and things.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I just saw a video on geo-engineering showing the maps. Done. I love. In fact, I'll include the link here. But they've done it well because it's a guy himself doing it himself, testing the air and himself and all this stuff, and came up with these things, and then checked out the government maps, showing that California is in a drought, while in the central, where I'm at, in Illinois and all that, is way colder and more wet than it should be. And he was saying it's like, you're moving it around, so it's going somewhere else. So that those things are really going on. In fact, he blew out the whole world, and then the entire world is getting warmer, but the Midwest, where I'm at, it's getting colder. It's like, no, winter's coming. I don't want to hear that. So I'll include the links for that, too.
I'm going to guess that NOAA is suggesting that our weather this year, that the West Coast is going to be warmer and drier, and the Midwest is going to be colder and wetter. And when they say colder, they're talking about deep snow. When I was talking with Vincent Finelli, he's talking about the frost lines changing from 24 inches down to 40.
Nice.
Now, a frost line of 40 inches would suggest 20 below zero for a week or two at a time.
Which we had last year. And luckily, the code around here is 48 inches. So hopefully I won't have my water break up.
Get a boat.
Yeah. So, well, all right. Well, anything in closing here? I think we pretty much covered all we're going to do in post-production.
No, I've got things I've got to do. It's been a pleasure with you, James, and have me on more frequently on other topics if you'd like. I need the exposure, and I like working with you. So, good luck on this one. Make it good, buddy. Yeah.
Okay.
As good as you can. I mean, it's not a whistleblowing thing. It's just an old grump physicist saying, I have some concerns. I don't know, and I know that I don't know. And if I can't figure it out, what does that mean? I'm getting senile. Yeah, but no, I'm clear as a bell. I'm being harassed. I told you about what happened with my home, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so I have other things like that happening, and I don't know quite what to make about it all. It's interesting.
I've come up with a theory. That when these things happen, that's telling you from a divine perspective, you're on the right path. It's almost like you look for harassment, you look for the opposite of what the world is doing, and you're in the ballpark on the right divine path. So.
Yeah, but I don't want to be going to war and battling. I want to go in as a lover. I don't want to fight. I want to love.
Well, we are at times now that there's changes coming, deep spiritual energy changes, and so whenever there's something like that, there's always going to be this messy zone. And
well, it's a dialogue going on, and if I can save myself, the way I'm doing it now is I'm seeing myself as the world, and if I can save myself, good luck with that. It will be a metaphor of saving the world at the archetypal level. At some level, you and I are one, and I am the walrus.
Goo goo goo.
Take care, James.
All right, we'll see you. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Bye-bye.
All right, Richard Miller. I'm going to be annotating. Well, you're watching this. You've already seen the annotations, but there won't be room to do all the annotations, I don't think. So I will be including a text in the description or downloadable with the full documentation of all the things that Dr. Miller mentioned and so forth, and things that I dig up along the way. And so you can just refer to the description, and I'm sure I'll have a link there when it downloaded. So there we go. I want to say we'll be doing some more interviews with Dr. Richard Lord Willing and The Creek Doesn't Rise Too High, and doing some other things and getting information. He's got a lot in his head that I'd like to get out of his head while he still has his head. Oh, boy. Oh, man. All right, we'll see you.
Oh, my old friend end. The ancient one of old, with wisdom for the new. Revive our inner sight, retell your timeless truths. Oh, it's your word.
Feet to Fire is a production of IPS Media Works on the ONSIG radio network of stations.